There are two kinds of people in the world. The first kind wakes up, checks their phone, makes some coffee, and goes about their day ticking off tasks. They work hard, they build things, and maybe even climb the ladder. But at the end of the day, something feels off. Something's missing. The second kind wakes up with fire in their chest. They are not just working, they are building something they believe in. They are not selling products or ticking boxes, they are telling a story with every move they make. People want to follow them. Work feels like a mission. And life, even with its chaos, feels aligned. The difference between these two people is not talent. It is not intelligence. It is not luck. The difference is that the second kind knows why they do what they do. That single word why has the power to split an ordinary life from an extraordinary one. It turns a struggling business into a movement. It transforms a manager into a leader. And it changes the way we look at ourselves, our work, and our world. Simon Sinek spent years trying to understand why some leaders, teams, and organizations inspire while others only operate. He asked questions most people never thought to ask. Why did Apple revolutionize not one, but several industries, while other tech companies with similar resources faded away? Why did Martin Luther King Jr. captivate the hearts of millions without a single dollar spent on advertising? Why do we trust some people deeply, even when their ideas are risky, while we remain suspicious of others, no matter how polished their words? The answer, again and again, came back to this: they started with why. Start with why is not just a strategy. It is a way of thinking. It challenges the way we define success, how we build loyalty, and how we communicate what matters most. It invites us to flip the script, to stop chasing outcomes and start building from belief. And here's the truth most people avoid: starting with why is not easy. It demands honesty. It forces us to slow down and ask uncomfortable questions. But those who are brave enough to dig deep to find and live their why unlock something that most people only dream of: influence with integrity. In this audiobook-style journey, we will not just dissect a book. We will walk through the powerful ideas that have helped people from all over the world transform their businesses, careers, and lives. You will hear stories, insights, and examples that bring these lessons to life. Not as theories, but as living, breathing proof that starting with why is the first step toward everything that matters. So as we begin, take a moment. Forget your job title. Forget your products, your goals, even your plans. Ask yourself one question. Why do I do what I do? Because the answer might just change everything. Part 1, The Spark: Why Some People Inspire While Others Just Sell. In a small auditorium years ago, a speaker walked on stage and wrote 3 words on a flip chart: why, how, what. The audience leaned forward, curious but unsure where he was going. That speaker was Simon Sinek, and what he introduced that day became something much bigger than a business idea. It became a spark. But the real story starts long before that. Think about the brands, leaders, or movements that have left a lasting impression on you. Maybe it is Apple. Maybe it is a person like Mahatma Gandhi. Or even a teacher you had years ago who made you see the world differently. They all have something in common, and it is not just talent or communication skills. It is that they inspired you. They made you feel something. And long after their words or products faded from memory, their why stayed with you. Contrast that with someone trying to sell you something. You have probably heard pitches that start like this: we make the best laptops on the market. Our processors are faster. Our screens are clearer. Want to buy one? You might listen. You might even buy if the price is right. But you are not inspired. Now imagine hearing this instead. We believe in challenging the status quo. We believe in thinking differently. The way we do that is by making beautifully designed products that are simple to use and user-friendly. We just happen to make computers. Want to buy one? That is how Apple communicates. They do not lead with what they do. They lead with why they do it. This is not just clever marketing. It is a deeper principle about how human beings respond to belief. People do not buy what you do, they buy why you do it. There is a reason we feel more connected to some leaders than others, even when they are saying similar things. Think of Martin Luther King Jr. He stood in front of thousands and declared, "I have a dream, not I have a plan." He painted a vision of a world that did not yet exist, but that people believed in. They followed him not because they had to, but because they wanted to be part of something meaningful. When people and organizations start with why, They attract others who believe the same thing. That belief becomes the glue. It builds loyalty that cannot be bought. It turns customers into advocates, employees into believers, and movements into legacies. Here is the irony: many people and businesses do not start with why. They start with what. They say, here is what we do, and here is how we do it. But they never talk about why it matters. They may succeed for a while. But without that core belief, their success is fragile. Competitors copy their products. Customers move on. Employees burn out. Sinek himself learned this the hard way. Before he discovered this idea, he ran a marketing firm. On paper, everything looked successful. The clients were big. The revenue was solid. But inside, something was wrong. He was uninspired, burned out, and drifting. He was doing everything right, yet it felt meaningless. One day, he sat down and asked himself, why did I start this in the first place? That question shook him. He realized he had lost touch with the reason he began to help others share their story. Not to make more money. Not to grow an agency. But to connect people through belief. Once he reconnected with his why, everything changed. He spoke differently. He worked differently. And most importantly, he felt alive again. That same shift is available to all of us, whether we are artists, entrepreneurs, teachers, or students. The spark begins when we stop thinking about what we do, and start thinking about why we do it. Ask yourself, what would it look like to lead with belief? To stop selling and start inspiring? To create from purpose, not pressure? You do not need to be famous or wealthy or brilliant to inspire others. You just need to be clear about your why and live it. There is a story of a small coffee shop owner who put a chalkboard outside her store every morning. On it, she did not write today's discount or a list of flavors. She wrote things like, "We believe a cup of coffee can change your day. We believe every stranger can become a friend." People walked in not because the coffee was cheaper, but because the message made them feel something. That shop grew, not just in size, but in loyalty. In a noisy world, belief stands out. So the question is not, what are you selling? The real question is, what do you believe, and are you willing to lead with that? Because once you do, something happens. People listen. People trust. And slowly, they begin to follow. Part 2, The Golden Circle, a pattern behind success. If you were to draw 3 concentric circles, one inside the next, and label the innermost one why, the middle one how, and the outer one what, you would be holding the key to something that has guided every inspiring movement, leader, and organization in modern history. Simon Sinek called this model the Golden Circle. At first glance, it looks simple. But like many simple things, it reveals something powerful once you look deeper. It explains why some people can capture attention, build trust, and lead movements, while others, despite talent or money, struggle to connect. Let us walk through each part. On the outside is what you do. Everyone and every business knows this. You make furniture. You teach math. You design software. It is your job title, your product, your offering. It is where most conversations begin. In the middle is how you do what you do. This might be your process, your unique method, or your values. It is what sets you apart from others who do the same thing. But at the core, right in the center of the circle, is why, and that is where everything changes. Why is not about making money or gaining followers. Those are results. Why is your purpose, your cause, your belief. It is the reason you get out of bed in the morning and the reason anyone should care. Here is where most people get it backward. They start from the outside. They say, here is what we do. Here is how we do it. Do you want to buy it? That kind of messaging might work for a while, especially if the product is good or the price is low. But it rarely inspires. It rarely builds lasting loyalty. In contrast, great leaders and organizations start from the inside. They begin with why. They say, here is what we believe. Here is why we do what we do. And oh, by the way, this is how we bring it to life, and this is what we offer. It is a reversal, and it works because it mirrors how human decision-making really happens. You see, the limbic brain, the part of our brain that controls decision-making, does not respond to facts or figures. It responds to feelings. It is where trust and loyalty live. And guess what? The limbic brain has no capacity for language. That is why we sometimes say things like, "This just feels right." Or, "I cannot explain it, but I trust them." Starting with why speaks directly to that part of us. It bypasses logic and connects to something deeper. And once belief is established, logic becomes a tool for confirmation, not persuasion. Let us take an example that almost everyone knows: Apple. Apple could say, "We make great computers. They are beautifully designed, easy to use, and user-friendly. Want to buy one?" Sounds fine. So do most tech companies. But what Apple actually communicates is this: we believe in challenging the status quo. We believe in thinking differently. The way we challenge the status quo is by making beautifully designed, simple to use, user-friendly technology. We just happen to make great computers. Want to buy one? Do you feel the difference? That message inspires. It attracts people who believe what Apple believes. It builds a tribe, not just a customer base. And that is why Apple fans line up overnight to buy a new product even when they already own something that works just fine. It is not about the product. It is about what the product means to them. The golden circle works beyond companies, too. Consider the Wright brothers, pioneers of human flight. They had no funding, no government support, no college degrees. But they had a deep belief that powered flight would change the world. Every day, they gathered with a small team, working with scrap parts, crashing again and again, driven not by fame but by purpose. At the same time, a man named Samuel Pierpont Langley, backed by the government, with access to Harvard scientists and a mountain of funding, was also trying to build the first airplane. On paper, he should have succeeded. But he failed. Why? Because he was chasing the outcome. He wanted to be first. He wanted to be rich. And people could feel that. His team showed up for a paycheck. The Wright brothers showed up for a belief. That is the power of starting with why. It turns ordinary effort into extraordinary commitment. It fuels perseverance. It binds people together. In business, this is the difference between a customer who buys once, and a loyal fan who refuses to switch even when cheaper options exist. In leadership, it is the difference between compliance and inspiration. In life, it is the difference between routine and purpose. The golden circle is not a theory to memorize. It is a lens, a way to see the world and the people in it. It challenges us to stop thinking about just what we do, or how we do it, and instead ask the deeper, harder question: why do we do it in the first place? Because once you know your why, everything else becomes clearer. And once you communicate it, the right people will find you, not because you sold them something, but because you showed them something they already believed. Part 3, Clarity of Why, a mission, not a product. On the windswept coast of Ventura, California, there is a low-slung building that smells of waxed canvas and salty air. Inside, employees sew jackets from recycled fishing nets, repair torn climbing pants mailed back by customers, and meet in sunlit rooms where surfboards lean against the walls. The company is Patagonia, and its founder, Yvon Chouinard, once summed up his philosophy in a single line: "We are in business to save our home planet." Notice what he did not say. He did not say, "We sell the best outdoor gear." He did not say, "We maximize quarterly profits." His sentence starts with purpose so clear you can picture it. He anchored the company's identity in a mission, not a merchandise list. That kind of clarity shines like a lighthouse. When Black Friday rolled around one year and every other retailer screamed discounts, Patagonia ran a full-page newspaper ad that read, "Do not buy this jacket." Underneath, they explained why consuming less was better for the planet and urged readers to repair what they owned before buying something new. Sales soared anyway, because people trusted that the company truly meant what it said. Patagonia did not need clever slogans. It had a transparent why. Clarity of why works the same way for individuals. Imagine a young doctor named Maya who finishes her residency and faces a fork in the road. One hospital tempts her with a high salary and a corner office in a private wing. Another offers a modest paycheck but serves a rural community 2 hours from the nearest city. Maya remembers why she entered medicine in the first place. She promised her grandmother she would bring quality care to people who rarely receive it. The second hospital aligns with that promise, so she chooses the dusty road and the smaller paycheck. Years later, when long days test her endurance, she keeps going because her mission is larger than her discomfort. Clarity rescues her from the drift that swallows so many bright careers. When leaders lack that clarity, something strange happens. The public senses the fog even before the balance sheets do. Look at the fall of Kodak. For decades its why was to preserve memories, yet the company began describing itself as a chemical film manufacturer. Instead of embracing digital photography which preserved memories better than film ever could, Kodak clung to the product that once made it rich. The mission became the merchandise, and the company withered. Its fate reminds us that a product is only a tool. The mission is the compass. Lose the compass and every successful quarter simply drifts you farther off course. Clarity of why does not mean writing an inspirational sentence and hanging it in the lobby. It means embedding that sentence in decisions large and small. During the early months of the COVID-19 pandemic, countless restaurants closed their doors, but one tiny bistro in Rome survived by doubling down on its purpose. The owner, Luca, believed food is a language of comfort that should never be silent, especially in crisis. He turned his dining room into a soup kitchen during the day and live-streamed pasta classes at night. The revenue from those classes kept his staff paid, and the meals he gave away kept his neighborhood fed. Customers who had never set foot in Italy ordered gift cards simply because Luca's why resonated with their own desire to help. Clarity invited loyalty from thousands of kilometers away. Some people worry that speaking their why out loud will chase away customers who disagree. The truth is the opposite. Fuzzy purpose tries to please everyone and inspires no one. Clear purpose attracts believers and politely releases the rest. Think of a magnet, its power comes from aligned particles all pointing the same direction. Blur that alignment and the magnet loses its pull. A leader's job is not to convert the entire world, it is to gather those whose hearts already lean toward the same north. Finding clarity demands honesty. Ask 5 hard questions. What change am I trying to make in the world? Whom do I want to serve? Which values am I unwilling to trade for convenience? How will I measure progress beyond money? And finally, would I pursue this path even if nobody applauded? Write the answers, speak them aloud, and notice which words quicken your pulse. Those are clues. Then test your clarity in daylight. Share it with a friend who will challenge you, not flatter you. Take a decision you need to make this week, whether to hire someone, launch a feature, or move cities, and filter it through your why. Does the decision amplify your mission, or does it merely chase applause? The exercise can be uncomfortable, but it prevents you from waking up one morning and wondering how your life became a stranger's resume. Remember, clarity is not a finish line. It is a daily practice. A violin must be tuned before every concert, a mission must be tuned before every meeting, every product launch, every major hire. The moment you feel tempted to say, "Close enough," pause and tune again. When a mission stays clear, magic follows. Customers forgive mistakes because they trust your intent. Employees bring ideas nobody asked for because they share the same heartbeat. Competitors copy your features but cannot steal your spirit. You become the Patagonia jacket people wear until it frays, the rural clinic patients travel miles to reach, the small Roman kitchen whose streaming classes fill homes across continents with the aroma of hope. That is the power of clarity of why. It turns work into a vow, products into symbols, and followers into partners in a story larger than any single transaction. Part 4, Trust and Loyalty, the Human Side of Why. One rainy afternoon in Seattle, a man walked into a coffee shop and ordered his usual drink. The barista smiled, remembered his name, and asked how his son's piano recital went. It was a small moment, the kind that would never make headlines, but it said something deeper. The man came back the next day, and the next, not because the coffee was spectacular, but because he felt known. Trusted. Seen. That is the heart of loyalty. It is not a transaction, it is a relationship. And relationships, whether in business or in life, are not built on what you offer. They are built on what you believe. More importantly, they are built when others believe you believe it too. This is why starting with why matters so much. It is not about clever marketing or emotional slogans. It is about trust, the kind that runs deeper than price tags or features. People do not stay loyal because you have the best product today. They stay because they believe in where you are going tomorrow. Think of 2 companies that sell athletic shoes. One says, "We make high-quality footwear for top performance. Built with premium materials, tested by athletes." The other says, "We believe everyone has greatness within them. We exist to help people move, grow, and push beyond their limits no matter where they start." Both might sell similar shoes. But only one speaks to identity. Only one says, we see you. And when people feel seen, when they feel understood, they stay. Trust begins when belief is shared. Loyalty is what happens when that belief is lived, over time, without contradiction. Simon Sinek once pointed out that loyalty does not come from being the best. It comes from being the most aligned, the most consistent in your actions, your words, and your values. People forgive mistakes when they trust your intention. They forgive setbacks when they believe in your mission. But when that belief is missing, even perfection will not win them back. Let us go back in time to the civil rights movement. Martin Luther King Jr. gave one of the most iconic speeches in modern history, the "I Have a Dream" speech. But here is what most people forget: that day, over 250,000 people showed up at the Lincoln Memorial. No Facebook invites. No email campaigns. No viral hashtags. Just belief. King spoke not from a policy manual, but from a place of deep conviction. His words echoed the values people already held but had not yet heard spoken with clarity and courage. People did not follow him for his strategies. They followed him because his why, justice, equality, dignity, matched their own. This same principle plays out in companies, too. Take Southwest Airlines. For years, it was not the cheapest airline, nor the fanciest. But it was the most trusted. Why? Because they made it clear that they existed to democratize the skies, to give everyday people the freedom to fly. That belief showed up everywhere, from their pricing to the personality of their flight attendants. They were not just in the airline business. They were in the freedom business. When 9/11 happened and airlines scrambled to survive, Southwest did something radical. They did not lay off a single employee. Not one. The company lost millions, but their why was intact. And because of that, loyalty only grew. Employees who stayed felt valued. Customers noticed. Competitors respected them even if they could not match them. Trust is not built in grand gestures. It is built in small, consistent choices. It is built when a company says, "This is who we are," and then actually lives it. It is built when a leader says, "You matter," and then listens when no one is watching. It is built when your why is more than words, when it shows up in hiring decisions, in product design, in how you treat a frustrated customer on a Tuesday afternoon. And here is something people often overlook: trust and loyalty are emotional. You cannot logic your way into someone's heart. You earn it by aligning what you say with what you do, again and again. This is why manipulations like discounts, fear, urgency might get you a quick sale, but they will not win you a tribe. Manipulation relies on pressure. Inspiration relies on belief. That is the difference between a company that says, "Buy now, 20% off," and one that says, "We believe this will make your life better and we hope you agree." People can tell the difference, even if they cannot explain it. And here is something even more powerful: when people trust you, they will defend you. When you make a mistake, they will give you the benefit of the doubt. Not because you are perfect, but because your values are consistent. That kind of loyalty is earned slowly, but it lasts. In a world that moves fast and changes faster, trust is the only currency that compounds over time. So the question is not, how do I get more customers, or how do I keep my employees from leaving? The better question is, do the people around me believe what I believe, and do I live it clearly enough for them to trust me? Because once they do, they will stay. They will return. They will tell others. Not because they have to, but because they want to be part of something that means something. That is the human side of why. Part 5, the role of leaders, starting with why in action. Leadership is not a rank. It is not a title. It is not corner offices or nameplates on polished doors. Leadership is about one thing: belief. Real leaders are those who carry a cause so clearly and passionately that others willingly follow, not out of fear or obligation, but because they feel part of something larger than themselves. The best leaders do not start by telling people what to do. They start by reminding people why they are doing it in the first place. Let us go back to a moment in history: the early days of Apple. Steve Jobs stood on stage in a black turtleneck and jeans, holding a tiny music player no bigger than a deck of cards. 8,000 songs in your pocket, he said. It was not just a slogan. It was a story. It was a belief that technology should be simple, personal, and liberating. Jobs was not just a businessman. He was a leader who embodied his why. His passion for elegant, human-centered design was not a gimmick. It showed up in every product Apple created. And because he believed it so deeply, others did too: engineers, designers, and eventually, millions of customers. His leadership worked because his why was not hidden behind spreadsheets. It was in his voice, in his decisions, and in the experience his company delivered. That is the kind of leadership that moves people, the kind that begins with purpose, not authority. But here is what most people misunderstand: being in charge does not automatically make someone a leader. You can manage people by telling them what to do. You can even get results that way. But you cannot inspire them. Inspiration comes when people believe that you believe what they believe. That connection happens through clarity and action, not through control. There is a story about a Marine Corps officer who always ate last. During field operations, the youngest and lowest ranking soldiers would line up for food first, while the officers waited until everyone else had eaten. This was not a rule, it was a culture. A signal that leadership is about service, not status. The same principle applies in organizations everywhere. When a leader walks into a meeting and says, "Here is the vision. Here is what we believe. I need your help to build it," they ignite possibility. But when a leader walks in and says, "Here are the numbers. Hit the targets or else," people may comply but they will not care. And when things get hard, they will leave. True leaders, the kind who start with why, build their organizations around that purpose. They attract talent not by offering the highest salaries, but by offering meaning. They retain people not through contracts, but through connection. This is why some of the world's most admired companies have cult-like loyalty, even when their products are flawed or their competitors are cheaper. People stay because they feel part of something worth building. A leader who starts with why does not need to have all the answers. In fact, the best ones rarely do. What they have is vision. They have a direction worth pursuing and the humility to let others figure out the how. Take Howard Schultz, the man behind Starbucks. He did not set out to sell coffee. He wanted to create a place between home and work, a third place where people could slow down and connect. That belief drove everything from store layout to customer service to the types of music played inside. Starbucks did not succeed because it offered the strongest brew. It succeeded because people bought into the idea that a cup of coffee could be an experience of pause in a noisy world. That is what happens when leadership starts with why. People do not just work for you. They work with you. They do not just buy your product. They feel proud to be associated with it. Of course, starting with why does not mean things will always go smoothly. There will be failures, missteps, criticism. But when the mission is clear, those moments become tests of belief, not reasons to quit. Think of any great movement in history. At the center of each one was not a flawless leader, but a deeply human one, someone who carried a cause forward through conviction and consistency. Leadership is not about being perfect. It is about being anchored. And when the storm hits, as it always does, people will not look for the smartest person in the room. They will look for the person who still remembers why they began. So whether you are running a startup, managing a team, or raising a family, the principle is the same. If you want people to follow you, give them something to believe in. Something real. Something you live every day, even when no one is watching. Because that is what leadership is. It is not what you say when things are easy. It is what you stand for when things get hard. Part 6, The Split, When Why Gets Lost. In the beginning, there is usually clarity. A founder starts with a purpose that burns brighter than the bottom line. A teacher enters the classroom believing in the potential of every child. A musician writes songs to heal a part of themselves and others. But something happens along the way. The vision blurs. The original belief fades behind deadlines, metrics, and expectations. Growth comes, but so does pressure. Slowly, the why that once gave it all meaning becomes buried beneath the what and the how. And that is when the split begins. Simon Sinek calls this moment the split, the point at which success, ironically, becomes the very thing that threatens the soul of the work. Let us take a look at a story most of us know, Walmart. Sam Walton started Walmart with a powerful belief that hardworking people in small towns deserved access to quality goods at fair prices. It was not about dominating markets. It was about serving families who had been ignored by the bigger retail chains. That why inspired loyalty from customers and fierce dedication from employees. But as Walmart grew, the focus shifted. Quarterly earnings became the priority. The original belief took a backseat to expansion. Decisions were made to cut costs, reduce staff, and push suppliers to the brink, all in the name of efficiency. The company still did what it always did, sold goods at low prices. But the why, the purpose behind those actions had eroded. And customers noticed. Employees noticed. Loyalty, once built on shared belief, became thin. People still shopped there, but something had changed. The spark was gone. That is the danger of the split. It does not always arrive as a dramatic crisis. More often, it sneaks in quietly through small compromises, forgotten principles, and pressure to keep up with competitors. One day, the work feels meaningful. The next, it feels mechanical. The story loses its soul. This happens in careers, too. A young artist starts painting to express truth. Years later, they are painting to match the algorithm. A doctor begins their practice to serve underserved communities. But years into the system, they are buried in paperwork, chasing billing codes, rarely looking up from the screen. The shift is subtle. But the cost is real. When we lose touch with our why, burnout creeps in. Cynicism replaces curiosity. We keep going, but something feels heavy. Unaligned. And here is the harsh part: once the split happens, more effort does not fix it. More hours. More features. More followers. None of it heals the absence of belief. A business that once felt like a mission now feels like a machine. A team that once worked with heart now moves like a checklist. The outward success might even grow, but the inner core begins to crack. It is not that companies and people forget how to succeed. It is that they forget why they began. One powerful example is Dell. In the early 2000s, Dell was a major player in the tech world. Their products were everywhere. Their sales soared. But they were focused heavily on what and how: sell computers, sell more, sell faster. So when they tried to enter the music player market releasing their version of an iPod, it failed completely. Why? Because people saw Dell as a computer company, not a company with a clear purpose. Their product lacked the emotional connection. No one felt inspired by it. Apple, on the other hand, succeeded wildly with the iPod, not because they made better hardware, but because people believed in Apple's why. Apple represented creativity, rebellion, design with purpose. When they released a music player, people trusted the intent behind it. That is the cost of the split. When your audience stops feeling why you do something, they stop caring about what you do. The same applies to leadership. A manager may have once been a passionate mentor, driven by the desire to lift others up. But when promotions become tied only to numbers, and when the pressure to produce outweighs the purpose to inspire, that leader starts making decisions for optics, not for belief. Teams notice. Trust slips. Loyalty dries up. But here is the hope: the split is not the end. It is a signal. A call to pause. To reflect. To return. It is a painful moment, but also an invitation. Because once you recognize the split, you have a choice. You can keep going through the motions, drifting farther from your center. Or you can stop, ask the hard questions, and find your way back to why. That does not mean tearing everything down. Often, the foundation is still there, it is just buried under layers of busyness and urgency. The work is to dig through, reconnect, and rebuild from the inside out. Start by remembering what made you fall in love with the work in the first place. What did you believe back then that still matters now? Who were you trying to help? What problem were you trying to solve? Talk to your team, your customers, your oldest friends. Listen for echoes of the mission you once carried. And then begin, quietly and consistently, to live that mission again, even in small ways. Because the split may feel like a breaking point, but it can also be a turning point. The moment you stop chasing applause and start listening for alignment. The moment you stop managing tasks and start leading with belief again. And in that moment, something shifts. The mission returns. The spark rekindles. And the journey forward begins with clarity, not noise. Part 7, Reconnecting with Why, a return to inspiration. Somewhere in the mountains of Colorado, a small team of engineers gathered in a rented garage with no promise of funding, no safety net, and no backup plan. They were working on a bicycle. But not just any bicycle, one that could give people freedom, independence, and adventure in places where no roads existed. They were not driven by profits or applause. They were driven by purpose. Years later, that bicycle became the foundation of a nonprofit that brought off-road mobility to remote villages across Africa. But what truly powered their journey was not technology, it was belief. They knew exactly why they were building it. And that clarity carried them through setbacks, funding rejections, and doubt. Reconnecting with why does not begin with strategy. It begins with honesty. When an individual or organization realizes they have drifted, when the passion that once lit the room now flickers at best, the instinct is often to fix things from the outside. Rebrand. Relaunch. Reorganize. But none of those truly work until something deeper is realigned. The work of reconnection is quiet, often invisible, and deeply personal. Simon Sinek reminds us that our why is not something we invent, it is something we discover. It is buried in our earliest memories, in the moments when we felt most alive, most useful, most aligned. It lives in the impact we dreamed of making long before anyone was watching. That is the first step back, remembering. Remember the moment you chose this path. What problem were you trying to solve? Who were you trying to serve? What did you hope would be different because of your work? Sometimes, we lose our why because we outgrow our old goals. But that does not mean the purpose is gone, it means it is evolving. Staying connected to why does not require staying static. It requires staying honest. Many organizations have faced this. Take Microsoft. For years, it was seen as a tech giant focused on dominating markets. But when Satya Nadella became CEO, he asked the company to rediscover its soul. He began emphasizing empathy, collaboration, and learning, not just performance. Under his leadership, Microsoft shifted from a company obsessed with winning to one focused on empowering people and organizations to achieve more. That is the shift that happens when why is brought back to the center. The energy changes. The culture shifts. Innovation becomes natural again, not because it is demanded, but because people care again. Individuals go through the same return. There is the story of a chef who, after years of running a Michelin-starred restaurant, stepped away. The pressure, the perfectionism, the endless pursuit of reviews, it had drained him. He spent months in silence, cooking for no one. Eventually, he began making meals for a shelter in his neighborhood. No cameras. No critics. Just service. One day, a young man approached him and said, "This is the first warm meal I have had in days." The chef looked up and smiled, and for the first time in years, he felt something. That feeling brought him back, not to the fame, but to the meaning. He reopened a small restaurant where the mission was clear: nourishment with dignity. Fewer stars, more soul. That is the journey of returning to why. And once you do, things begin to align. The work may still be hard. The setbacks may still come. But now there is an anchor. A reason. A direction. Teams feel it. Customers feel it. Even strangers feel it. Because when a person or a company is truly connected to why they do what they do, it radiates. It shows up in every decision, every message, every act of service. And people are drawn to that not because of marketing, but because it feels real. So how do you begin? You start small. Have the conversations you have been avoiding. Ask your team or yourself, what would we do if money were not the goal? What impact are we most proud of? When have we felt most alive? And then listen. Not just for answers, but for alignment. Because that alignment, that quiet confidence that you are doing what you were meant to do, is more powerful than any plan. The world is filled with noise. With strategies, trends, templates. But belief cuts through. Purpose invites. And once you return to your why, others will feel it and many will want to follow. Not because you asked them to, but because your mission reminded them of their own. Purpose is not just a luxury for a chosen few. It is the starting point for anyone who wants to live or lead with meaning. Whether you are building a business, starting a creative project, or simply trying to find direction, knowing why you do what you do changes everything. Throughout this journey, we have uncovered the ideas that have helped people and organizations all over the world inspire trust, build loyalty, and lead with clarity. These lessons are not just for leaders or entrepreneurs, they are for anyone who wants to create lasting impact. Here on Books Arena, we believe in bringing powerful books to life not just through summaries, but through storytelling. If this message resonated with you, if it gave you a new perspective or helped you reconnect with your own why, consider subscribing. It is free, it helps the channel grow, and most importantly, it helps more people discover stories that truly matter. You are not just a viewer here, you are part of a growing community that believes in purpose over pressure, depth over noise. Thank you for spending your time with Books Arena. Now go out there and start with why. Welcome to Books Arena, the place where knowledge meets curiosity. Today, we begin an extraordinary journey through one of the most fascinating books of our time, Sapiens, A Brief History of Humankind by Yuval Noah Harari. This book is not just a history of our species, it is a mirror that reflects how far we have come, from insignificant apes to rulers of the planet. It asks deep questions: what makes us human? Why do we believe in gods, nations, and money? Are we happier now than our ancestors were? In this audiobook, we will explore Sapiens in 7 meaningful parts, each focused on a key turning point in human history. Real-life examples will help bring these ideas to life. Whether you are a history buff, a science lover, or just someone curious about the world, this series is for you. Let us begin with Part 1, The Cognitive Revolution. Part 1, The Cognitive Revolution. Welcome back to Books Arena. In this first part of Sapiens, A Brief History of Humankind, we dive into what Yuval Noah Harari calls the cognitive revolution, the point in history when Homo sapiens began to think, communicate, and imagine in new ways. 70,000 years ago, humans were just another species of animal. We shared the planet with other humans like Homo neanderthalensis and Homo erectus, and we were not particularly special. In fact, if a Neanderthal had seen a group of our ancestors, he might not have been very impressed. We were not the strongest, nor the fastest. But something changed, something invisible, yet incredibly powerful. That something was our ability to create and believe in stories. Let us consider a simple question: why do millions of people stand in line for a new iPhone? Why do people believe in nations, money, or even companies? The answer lies in our unique ability to create shared myths. These myths are not lies, they are ideas that exist only in our collective imagination, but they shape how we live. This all started during the cognitive revolution. Humans began to develop complex language, far beyond the simple signals used by other animals. While a chimpanzee could shout to warn of danger, humans could talk about things that were not even present, about past experiences, future possibilities, or imaginary beings. This new ability allowed our ancestors to cooperate in large groups. While a group of chimpanzees could work together up to about 50 members, humans could unite hundreds, even thousands of people through shared beliefs. This is what Harari calls fictional realities. Take for example, the idea of PepsiCo or Google. These are not physical objects. They are not people. But millions of people obey them, invest in them, and even fight legal battles over them. Why? Because we believe in a shared fiction, that these companies are real and meaningful. And this power began the moment humans learned to tell stories. In the ancient world, this manifested in beliefs in tribal spirits, totems, and gods. Every tribe believed in different stories, but each story helped their people cooperate and survive. Now imagine this. You are a Homo sapiens hunter 60,000 years ago. You are in a forest with your small tribe. Suddenly, you encounter a rival group. Without shared myths or language, you might fight or flee. But now imagine your tribe believes in the same god, or follows the same ritual. That shared story can help avoid conflict and promote trust. This trust based on common belief led to the next leap: trade, diplomacy, and culture. Early humans began trading tools, food, and even ideas. Art, religion, and eventually written language started with the sparks of the cognitive revolution. Here's another modern comparison. Think about currency. A 500 rupee note has no real value. It is just a piece of paper. But because millions of people believe it has value, it becomes powerful. We buy groceries, pay salaries, and build industries with it, all based on belief. Without shared myths, none of this would be possible. Interestingly, Harari mentions that this revolution did not make life easier right away. Life was still tough. Our ancestors still had to hunt, gather, and protect themselves from wild animals. But now, they had something more: a mental edge that allowed them to adapt and outcompete other human species. In fact, Homo sapiens might have played a key role in the extinction of other humans like Neanderthals. Around 40,000 years ago, Neanderthals vanished. One reason could be that they simply could not compete with the more socially connected, story-driven Homo sapiens. And this is where it gets fascinating. You and I, sitting here, listening to this on Books Arena, are the result of that ancient shift. Our ability to think about gods, nations, money, and human rights all began with this cognitive jump. Let us not forget the artistic revolution that came with it. In caves like those in Lascaux, France, and Bhimbetka, India, early humans painted animals, symbols, and even abstract shapes. These were not just decorations, they were attempts to make sense of the world, to share ideas, and to leave a legacy. So next time you see a child pretending their toy is a spaceship, or someone reading a novel, remember, this is not just imagination. It is part of what makes us human. No other species tells stories, creates gods, or believes in invisible rules. In summary, the cognitive revolution was not just a step in evolution. It was a launchpad for everything that followed: agriculture, empires, religion, and science. Without it, sapiens would not have become the dominant force on Earth. Here on Books Arena, we explore books that change the way we see ourselves. And in Sapiens, Yuval Noah Harari is asking us to re-examine what it really means to be human. In the next part, we will look at the agricultural revolution, how humans went from hunters and gatherers to farmers and landowners, and how that changed not only the world, but also our own happiness and freedom. Stay with us on this journey. Part 2, the Agricultural Revolution. Welcome back to Books Arena. In our last episode, we explored the cognitive revolution, that powerful leap which gave Homo sapiens the ability to create shared myths and collaborate on a large scale. Now, in this second part of Sapiens, A Brief History of Humankind by Yuval Noah Harari, we dive into another turning point, the agricultural revolution, one of the most dramatic events in human history, and also, perhaps, one of the most misunderstood. For millions of years, humans lived as hunter-gatherers. They moved from place to place, hunting animals and gathering fruits, nuts, and wild grains. Life was simple, and in some ways, surprisingly comfortable. Their diet was diverse. They spent only about 5 to 6 hours a day on food collection, and they had strong social connections. Then around 10,000 years ago, something began to shift. In different parts of the world, the Middle East, China, Mesoamerica, and Africa, humans began to domesticate plants and animals. Wheat, rice, corn, barley, lentils, and later, cows, goats, and sheep became the foundation of a new lifestyle, farming. This change was not a sudden choice. It was a slow, gradual process. Imagine a tribe camping near a wild field of wheat. Someone notices that seeds dropped near the camp start to grow the next season. So, they begin to clear more space, remove competing plants, and eventually start planting intentionally. Over generations, this turned into full-time agriculture. People began staying in one place. Villages were formed. The age of permanent settlements had begun. But here is where Yuval Noah Harari surprises us. He argues that the agricultural revolution was not a blessing. Instead, it may have been history's biggest fraud. How could farming, the foundation of civilization, be a bad thing? Let us break it down. Farming allowed humans to grow more food. That sounds good, right? But instead of leading to better nutrition and free time, it led to population growth. More food meant more children. But that also meant more mouths to feed, more work, and less mobility. Farmers had to work harder and longer than foragers. They had to sow, weed, water, harvest, and store crops. A failed crop could mean starvation. Meanwhile, their diet became less diverse, mainly grains, with fewer fruits and wild meats. Let us compare this to a modern real-life example. Think of a software developer who leaves a stable job to start a startup. In theory, it offers more control and freedom. But in reality, they may end up working more hours, under more pressure, for uncertain rewards. Farming was like that. It offered control over food, but at a high cost. Not only that, but social inequality also began with farming. In a forager society, everyone had access to the same food and tools. But on farms, some people controlled more land than others. Property became a thing. Hierarchies formed. Those who controlled food became powerful. Others became laborers, peasants, or even slaves. For example, think about a landlord in rural India who owns acres of farmland. The workers who farm that land often struggle to meet basic needs, while the owner gains wealth and influence. This kind of imbalance began with agriculture. The agricultural revolution also changed our relationship with nature. Where foragers lived with the land, farmers tried to control it. Forests were cut down. Wild animals were fenced out. Rivers were redirected. This control over nature gave rise to civilizations, but also to wars over land, floods, and famines. There is also the story of wheat, as Harari points out. One could argue that wheat domesticated humans, not the other way around. It turned independent foragers into field workers. People spent hours taking care of this grass, bending their backs, working in the sun, carrying water, and guarding it from pests. All for a grain. Another consequence was the rise of anxiety. A hunter-gatherer could move if a place was unsafe. But farmers were rooted to one location. If enemies attacked or crops failed, they suffered deeply. And since they had houses, food stores, and land, they had more to lose. Religion, too, began to change. In forager societies, spirituality was often animistic, believing spirits existed in animals, rivers, and trees. But with farming, we see the rise of organized religion. People prayed for rain, fertile soil, and good harvests. Gods became supervisors of agriculture and protectors of property. Here at Books Arena, we always look for deeper meaning in history. And this part of Sapiens asks a bold question: did we domesticate wheat, or did wheat domesticate us? But we should not think of the agricultural revolution as all bad. It did lay the foundation for cities, writing, trade, and technology. It allowed humans to build pyramids, temples, and eventually space rockets. But that came later. In its early phase, it may have made life harder, not easier. Let us end with a thought experiment. Imagine two children, one born to a forager tribe 15,000 years ago, and another to a farmer family 9,000 years ago. The forager child roams forests, eats fruits, plays, and moves with her tribe. The farmer child wakes at dawn, tends to animals, pulls weeds, and guards crops. Now ask yourself, who is more free? In the next episode of Books Arena, we will explore how small farming villages became kingdoms and empires, and how shared myths like religion, money, and laws helped unify humankind. Stay with us as we continue the journey through Sapiens, a brief history of humankind. Part 3, The Unification of Humankind. Welcome back to Books Arena, where we explore books that change the way we see the world. In the last part of Sapiens, a brief history of humankind, we looked at the agricultural revolution and how it transformed hunter-gatherers into farmers, laying the foundation for human settlements, but also introducing inequality, disease, and hard labor. Now, in this third part, we examine what Yuval Noah Harari calls the unification of humankind, a process where humans from scattered tribes and villages slowly began to see themselves as part of something larger. At first, the world was divided into thousands of tiny cultures, each with its own gods, laws, and languages. A person from the Ganges Valley in India would have nothing in common with someone from the Nile Delta in Egypt or the Andes Mountains in South America. But over time, three powerful forces began to unite people across continents: money, empires, religion. Let us begin with money, which is one of the most successful tools of unification in human history. Money works not because it is a physical object, but because people believe in its value. It is a shared myth that everyone agrees upon. For example, a shopkeeper in Delhi will accept a piece of paper, a 500 rupee note, in exchange for real goods like rice or clothes. Why? Because he trusts that he can use that same piece of paper to buy something else later. Harari explains that money is the most universal and efficient system of mutual trust ever invented. It does not matter what religion you follow or what language you speak, as long as you accept the value of money, you can trade with anyone. In today's world, think of how global companies like Apple or Amazon function. People from India, Japan, and Brazil can all buy and sell using the same currencies and credit systems. This kind of cooperation is only possible when billions of people believe in the same economic system. Now let us move to the second unifying force, empires. When we hear the word empire, we might imagine kings, armies, and battles. That is part of it. But Harari points out that empires were also cultural and administrative systems that brought together diverse peoples under one rule. Take the Maurya Empire in ancient India. It united huge regions of South Asia under a single administration. Emperor Ashoka, after witnessing the horrors of war, converted to Buddhism and promoted peace and tolerance across his empire. He sent emissaries to foreign lands, supported public works, and encouraged moral behavior. Another example is the Roman Empire. It spread roads, architecture, and law across Europe, the Middle East, and North Africa. Even though it fell centuries ago, many modern laws, languages, and institutions can trace their roots back to Rome. Empires often spread ideas, technologies, and even religions. While they were sometimes oppressive, they also created shared identities. A Persian, an Egyptian, and a Greek citizen could all be subjects of the same empire using the same currency, paying taxes to the same authority, and sometimes even worshipping the same gods. The third major force of unification is religion. As humans formed larger societies, they needed ways to establish order, morality, and belonging. Religion stepped in to provide answers to life's big questions: why are we here? What happens after death? How should we treat others? At first, religions were local and polytheistic. People worshipped multiple gods who represented natural forces like the sun, rain, and fertility. But over time, we see the rise of universal religions, belief systems that spread across cultures and promoted shared values. Buddhism, Christianity, and Islam are three examples that Harari highlights. They offered more than rituals; they provided a moral framework that united millions of people under common principles. Let us take Buddhism, for example. It originated in India but spread across Asia. A Buddhist monk in Sri Lanka and a Buddhist merchant in China might never meet, but they would share the same teachings, ideas about suffering, desire, and the path to enlightenment. Or consider Islam. A Muslim in Morocco and a Muslim in Indonesia will both face Mecca to pray. This shared practice creates a sense of brotherhood that crosses national borders. These religions helped build communities, inspired art and literature, and shaped politics. They taught people to trust strangers, welcome travelers, and care for the poor, values that help civilizations grow. But religion also had its conflicts. History is full of religious wars, persecutions, and crusades. Harari does not shy away from this. He reminds us that while religion can unify, it can also divide. The same can be said for empires and money. So, what does it mean to be unified? Harari argues that unification does not mean uniformity. It means connection. Different cultures, ideas, and beliefs became part of a larger web. Today, you can wear jeans from the United States, use a phone made in South Korea, and listen to a philosophy podcast recorded in France all in one day. Modern globalization is the result of thousands of years of unification. And it all began when people started believing in shared systems like money, empire, and religion. Here on Books Arena, we believe that understanding our past helps us make sense of our present. And Sapiens shows that the human story is not just about survival, it is about connection, cooperation, and shared imagination. In the next part, we will explore the scientific revolution, a period that reshaped human destiny through discovery, doubt, and data. Stay tuned and continue the journey with us. Part 4. The Scientific Revolution. Welcome back to Books Arena. So far in Sapiens, a brief history of humankind, we have explored how humans became the planet's dominant species through the cognitive revolution, how farming transformed societies during the agricultural revolution, and how shared systems like money, empires, and religion helped unify humankind. Now, in this fourth part, we enter a chapter that changed not just how we live, but how we think. This is the scientific revolution, a turning point in human history that began around 500 years ago, and one that continues to shape the modern world in ways we often take for granted. But let us begin with a simple question: what is science? Yuval Noah Harari explains that science is not just a collection of facts or inventions. It is a way of thinking, a method of learning through observation, questioning, and experimentation. What makes the scientific revolution special is that for the first time in history, humans openly admitted they did not know everything. Before the 16th century, most people believed that all knowledge came from ancient texts, religious scriptures, or wise elders. But scientists like Copernicus, Galileo, and Newton began challenging that idea. They said, "Let us observe the universe ourselves. Let us test, measure, and experiment." And in doing so, they discovered truths that no book had ever mentioned. For example, Galileo used a telescope to study the night sky and found moons orbiting Jupiter. This challenged the old belief that everything revolved around Earth. Imagine the courage it took to say that the religious view of the universe might be wrong and to say it publicly. This kind of thinking was revolutionary. It was not just about planets and stars. It was about changing the foundation of how we seek truth. Let us consider a real-life comparison. Think of a child who always accepts what their parents say. One day, the child decides to test an idea for themselves. Maybe they drop two balls of different weights to see if they hit the ground at the same time. That small act of questioning is science in its purest form. The scientific revolution did not stay limited to laboratories and observatories. It fueled the Industrial Revolution, medical breakthroughs, transportation, and even global communication. And it was closely linked to two other major forces, European imperialism and capitalism. Harari explains that science, empire, and capitalism fed each other. When European explorers set sail to distant lands, they needed maps, navigation tools, and geographical knowledge. So, kings funded scientists to make better instruments and study the world. In return, scientists got the support and resources they needed. Take the example of Captain James Cook, a British explorer in the 18th century. He traveled to Australia, New Zealand, and the Pacific Islands. But he did not go alone. He took with him scientists, botanists, and even artists. While Cook claimed land for Britain, his team collected data, studied new species, and drew detailed maps. Empire and science worked hand in hand. This relationship still exists today. For example, space agencies like NASA and ISRO push the boundaries of science, but they are also funded by governments with strategic interests. Satellites, for instance, help with climate research, but also with military intelligence. Now let us talk about one of the most powerful consequences of the scientific revolution, the rise of technology. From the steam engine to the internet, from electricity to artificial intelligence, all of these were made possible because people began trusting evidence over belief. They experimented, failed, learned, and improved. The scientific method became the most reliable tool to change the physical world. But this power comes with a price. Harari warns that science gives us power, but not purpose. Just because we can build nuclear bombs, does that mean we should? Just because we can alter DNA, does that mean we understand the long-term consequences? This is where values and ethics come in, and why, even in a scientific age, we still need philosophy, history, and storytelling. Think of the modern smartphone. It connects us to the entire world, allows us to access information in seconds, and gives us tools our ancestors would have considered magical. But it can also lead to addiction, distraction, and social isolation. The same tool can be used to educate or manipulate, to create or control. Another important insight from Harari is that science and capitalism are deeply linked through the idea of progress. Capitalism believes in growth, that tomorrow should be better than today, and next year richer than this one. Science offers the innovation to make that happen. Imagine a pharmaceutical company. It invests in research to find a cure for a disease. If it succeeds, it sells the drug for profit. The profit then funds more research. This cycle drives both knowledge and economic gain. But what happens when profit becomes more important than people? What happens when technology replaces jobs faster than we can create new ones? These are questions the modern world must face, and they began with the seeds planted during the scientific revolution. At Books Arena, we believe that understanding our past helps us ask better questions about our future. The scientific revolution reminds us that progress is not automatic, it must be guided by curiosity, responsibility, and wisdom. To conclude, the scientific revolution changed the human story forever. It gave us airplanes and antibiotics, smartphones, and space travel. But it also gave us nuclear weapons and climate change. It is not just about discovering facts, it is about deciding what kind of world we want to create. In the next part, we will explore the powerful force of capitalism, how money and markets came to rule our lives, and what it means to live in a world driven by profit and productivity. Part 5, The Capitalist Creed. Welcome back to Books Arena, where we uncover books that make us rethink everything we thought we knew. In the last part of Sapiens, A Brief History of Humankind, we explored the scientific revolution, a movement that transformed how humans viewed the universe and themselves. In this episode, we dive into another force that reshaped the world and continues to shape our everyday lives: capitalism. Yuval Noah Harari refers to this as the capitalist creed, not just an economic model, but a belief system that has become so widespread, it often goes unquestioned. Let us begin by understanding what capitalism really is. At its core, capitalism is the belief that economic growth is essential, that the economy must keep expanding, and that individuals, businesses, and governments must focus on generating profit and reinvesting it for future gains. In ancient times, people measured wealth mostly in land, grain, or cattle. There was very little emphasis on growth. Farmers produced enough to survive. Kings collected enough taxes to run their kingdoms. But starting in the 16th and 17th centuries, a new idea emerged that profit is not evil, and instead, it is good and necessary. For example, imagine a blacksmith in a medieval village. He earns enough to support his family and perhaps train an apprentice. That is it. But a modern capitalist blacksmith might take a loan, open more workshops, hire workers, and expand across cities. He is no longer focused on just surviving, he wants to grow. Harari explains that this shift in mindset from survival to expansion is the foundation of capitalism. But what makes this system work? The answer is credit and trust. Today, we borrow money not just based on what we have, but on what we might earn in the future. Banks give loans because they believe in tomorrow's growth. This trust in future profits allows businesses to take risks, innovate, and create new products. Let us take a real-life example, Apple Incorporated. When Apple develops a new iPhone, it spends billions on design, research, and manufacturing. But it does this confidently because it trusts that millions of people will buy the new phone. Investors, in turn, buy Apple's shares because they trust in its future earnings. This kind of future-oriented thinking is a major difference between ancient economies and modern capitalist ones. And it has enabled incredible growth, new industries, global trade, and higher standards of living. However, Harari also warns us to look at both sides of the coin. Capitalism has brought undeniable benefits. It lifted billions of people out of poverty, expanded education, created jobs, and encouraged innovation. In countries like South Korea and Germany, capitalist policies turned war-torn economies into global leaders within a few decades. But capitalism also has flaws, especially when profit becomes more important than people or the planet. Think about the fast fashion industry. It produces cheap clothing in massive quantities to meet consumer demand. But behind those clothes are underpaid workers in unsafe factories, often in developing countries. The desire for constant profit leads to environmental pollution and social injustice. Or consider how large food corporations market sugary snacks to children, knowing it may lead to long-term health issues. These companies do not always act out of malice, but out of loyalty to shareholders and the drive for quarterly profits. Harari calls this the religion of capitalism because it often requires blind faith. People believe that if the economy grows, everything else will fall into place: education, health, happiness. But is that always true? In many wealthy nations today, economic growth continues, but people still feel anxious, lonely, and burned out. More money does not always mean more meaning. This brings us to another important point in Harari's discussion: the connection between capitalism and consumerism. Capitalism does not work unless people keep buying. So over time, the idea of happiness became linked with consumption. We are constantly told that buying a new car, upgrading our phone, or taking luxury vacations will make us feel better. But does this constant buying make us truly happy? Harari reminds us that many ancient societies found joy in rituals, nature, family, and storytelling, not in shopping malls. Today, advertisements shape our desires and make us feel like we are always missing something. Consumerism teaches us that we are never enough, unless we have more. Let us consider an example closer to home. Imagine a teenager saving money to buy the latest smartphone. He believes it will make him popular, confident, and connected. But soon after he gets it, a newer model is released. Suddenly, that happiness fades. This cycle of desire, purchase, and disappointment is what fuels modern economies. So what is the solution? Harari does not argue that capitalism is evil. In fact, he acknowledges its power to lift societies and reward creativity. But he asks us to be aware. To question the system we live in. To ask, is this growth sustainable? Are we sacrificing long-term peace for short-term profit? At Books Arena, we believe that books like Sapiens help us not only learn about history, but also reflect on the present. Capitalism is not just an economic force, it is a cultural one. It shapes how we value ourselves, how we spend our time, and what we believe success looks like. As we look ahead, the biggest challenge may not be whether capitalism can survive, but whether it can evolve to include values like sustainability, fairness, and well-being. In the next part, we will explore the Industrial Revolution, the machines, factories, and fossil fuels that accelerated humanity into the modern age. Part 6, the Industrial Revolution. As we continue our journey through Sapiens, a brief history of humankind, here on Books Arena, we move forward from the world of credit, commerce, and consumerism to the era of engines, factories, and fossil fuels. In this part, we explore the Industrial Revolution, one of the most dramatic transformations in human history. Let us begin with a simple fact: for most of human existence, life was powered by muscle, wind, and fire. Whether it was grinding grain, carrying water, or weaving cloth, almost every task depended on human or animal effort. But around 200 years ago, everything changed. Steam engines, coal, electricity, and machines replaced manual labor. This was the birth of the modern world. So what exactly was the Industrial Revolution? Yuval Noah Harari explains that it was not just a collection of inventions, it was a mindset shift. Humans began to believe that machines could solve problems, and that continuous improvement was not only possible, but expected. This faith in progress powered by science, capitalism, and empire led to machines that could do the work of hundreds. Take the steam engine, for example. Before it, transporting goods relied on carts or boats moved by wind or muscle. After the steam engine, trains could move tons of coal, textiles, or steel across entire countries in hours. What once took weeks now took days. And what took days now took minutes. Factories became the new temples of labor. People left farms and villages to work in cities. Towns like Manchester in England grew overnight, filled with textile mills and smokestacks. The rhythm of life changed. Instead of working by the sun or the season, workers now followed the factory clock. To make this relatable, imagine your own daily routine. You wake up, check your phone, take a hot shower, make toast in an electric toaster, and ride a bus to school or work. All of these things, from electricity to machines to transportation, are gifts of the Industrial Revolution. We no longer depend on sunlight or muscle power. Our world runs on fossil fuels and machines. But this revolution came at a cost. Harari points out that while the Industrial Revolution improved productivity, it also led to suffering, pollution, and inequality. In the 1800s, factory workers, including children, labored for 14 to 16 hours a day in dangerous conditions for very little pay. The air in industrial cities was thick with smoke. Rivers were poisoned with factory waste. Let us take the example of London in the 19th century. As the city industrialized, coal smoke filled the skies. The Thames River, once clean, became so polluted with sewage and chemicals that it was called the Great Stink. Diseases like cholera spread rapidly in overcrowded slums. At the same time, others grew extremely rich. Factory owners, investors, and colonial powers profited enormously. The British Empire, for instance, used industrial power to expand its reach, building railways in India not just for transportation, but to move raw materials like cotton and tea back to Britain. This leads to another point Harari makes: the Industrial Revolution did not happen in isolation. It was connected to capitalism and imperialism. Colonies provided cheap labor and raw materials, and industrialized nations exported manufactured goods back to them. The wealth of Europe was built, in part, on the backs of others. Now, let us consider a real-life comparison. Think of modern supply chains. A smartphone might be designed in California, assembled in China, using minerals from Africa, and shipped worldwide. Workers in different countries perform tasks for wages that vary greatly. This global network of production and consumption began during the Industrial Age, and we are still living in it. Another major change was in agriculture. With machines like tractors and harvesters, farming became far more efficient. A few farmers could now feed entire cities. But this also meant many farmers lost their jobs and moved to cities for work. Rural life began to shrink, while urban populations exploded. Perhaps one of the most lasting impacts of the Industrial Revolution was its effect on human behavior and values. As Harari notes, people began to expect constant change. Unlike traditional societies that valued stability and repetition, industrial societies reward innovation, speed, and risk-taking. For example, in the 18th century, most people lived where they were born and worked in jobs passed down from their parents. By the 20th century, it was common to change careers, move cities, and try new things. Ambition, competition, and mobility became new cultural norms. Yet, we must not forget the environmental cost. The Industrial Revolution marked the beginning of large-scale environmental damage. Fossil fuels, coal, oil, and gas powered progress, but also released carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. Forests were cleared, rivers dammed, and species wiped out. Harari reminds us that while humans were improving their own lives, they were also altering the planet in dangerous ways. And this brings us to a serious question: is this growth sustainable? Today, we enjoy incredible comforts: air conditioning, hospitals, internet, and global travel. But all of it depends on resources that are limited. Climate change, pollution, and biodiversity loss are warnings that the Earth may not keep up with our hunger for growth. So where do we go from here? Harari does not offer simple answers. But he encourages us to understand history to see how the forces of science, capitalism, and industry have shaped our lives. With that awareness, we can begin to make better choices. At Books Arena, we believe that learning from the past gives us power in the present. The Industrial Revolution was a miracle and a warning. It gave us more than any generation before us, but it also asked us to pay a price we are only now beginning to understand. In the next part, we will explore a topic that directly affects how we see ourselves and others: nationalism and human rights. How did humans go from being subjects of kings to citizens with rights? And what stories made us believe in nations and equality? Part 7, Nationalism, Human Rights, and the Modern World. As the Industrial Revolution transformed economies and environments, another shift was happening in the way humans thought about themselves and each other. For most of human history, people were born into rigid hierarchies. You were either a king or a peasant, a noble or a slave. Your rights, if any, were determined by your social class, gender, or religion. But beginning in the 18th and 19th centuries, new ideas emerged: ideas about freedom, equality, and the individual. Yuval Noah Harari explains how liberal humanism rose alongside nationalism and capitalism. At its heart, liberalism claims that each human being has intrinsic value, that we are all individuals with rights, thoughts, and feelings that matter. This was a radical idea. Consider a real-life example from the American Declaration of Independence in 1776. It stated, "All men are created equal." At the time, this was revolutionary. It challenged monarchs and empires and suggested that legitimacy came not from birthright, but from the will of the people. Soon after, the French Revolution echoed the same values: liberty, equality, and fraternity. These ideas began spreading across continents, shaping revolutions, constitutions, and movements for justice. But Harari shows us something important: these values did not appear in a vacuum. They were constructed stories, like all large-scale human ideas. Just like money, religion, and nations, human rights exist because we believe in them. Take the idea of human equality. Biologically, we are not all equal. Some people are tall, others short. Some are strong, others weak. Intelligence, health, and beauty vary from person to person. But liberalism argues that despite these differences, we all deserve equal rights. This is not a scientific truth, it is a moral decision. And yet, believing in it has changed the world. Slavery was abolished in many parts of the world because people started seeing it as a violation of basic rights. Women fought for and gained the right to vote, study, and work. Workers formed unions, demanding fair wages and safe conditions. Colonies struggled for independence, inspired by the belief that all people deserve freedom. These changes were not easy. Progress was slow, and often violent. But the spread of liberal ideas reshaped governments, education systems, and even the way we raise children. At the same time, another story took hold: the story of the nation. Harari explains that humans are tribal by nature. We evolved in small bands of a few dozen people. But with the rise of imagined communities like religion and money, we learned to cooperate in larger groups. Nationalism took this one step further, teaching millions of strangers to see themselves as one people, with a shared history, culture, and destiny. A French farmer and a Parisian lawyer, who would never meet in real life, began to see themselves as French. They were told they shared blood, language, and loyalty to a flag. This idea became so powerful that people were willing to fight and die for their nations. Let us take the example of India's freedom struggle. Indians lived in diverse communities, different languages, religions, and regions. But the idea of being Indian united them against colonial rule. Leaders like Mahatma Gandhi and Jawaharlal Nehru spoke of Swaraj, or self-rule, and planted the seeds of national identity. But nationalism, like all stories, has a double edge. It can unite, but also divide. The same loyalty that makes someone feel proud to belong can make them suspicious or hostile toward others. Harari reminds us that nationalism has fueled wars, genocides, and discrimination from World War I and II to modern-day ethnic conflicts. So, where do human rights and nationalism meet, and where do they clash? Liberalism says, all humans are equal. Nationalism says, my nation is special. Sometimes these ideas work together. A nation might pride itself on promoting equality. But other times, Nationalism overrides human rights, labeling outsiders as threats or lesser beings. This tension is visible today. Refugee crises, debates over immigration, and rising xenophobia all reflect the clash between universal human rights and national loyalty. Can a nation truly treat every human being with dignity while also prioritizing its own people above all? Harari does not give easy answers. Instead, he encourages us to question the stories we live by. Which values do we uphold? Which ones do we compromise when faced with fear, crisis, or pride? There is one more idea to consider here: the growing role of global cooperation. In the 20th and 21st centuries, new systems like the United Nations, World Health Organization, and International Criminal Court began to promote shared human values across borders. They encourage nations to see themselves not as isolated powers, but as part of a global family. Harari calls this global humanism. He acknowledges that it is still a work in progress, but he sees it as essential for the future, especially as we face global challenges like climate change, pandemics, and technological disruption. Imagine this: a virus does not care whether you are American or Indian, rich or poor, Hindu or Christian. It spreads through bodies, not borders. In such moments, the belief in shared humanity becomes not just a moral idea, but a practical necessity. As we near the end of our journey through Sapiens, one thing becomes clear: the power of stories. Nations, rights, money, and religion, these are all shared myths. When believed by enough people, they become real enough to shape history. In the next and final part, we will explore the future of humankind. Where are we headed? Are we becoming gods, or losing ourselves to technology? Let us find out in the last chapter of Sapiens, A Brief History of Humankind. Part 8, The Future of Humankind. As we arrive at the final chapter of Sapiens, we look not to the past, but to the future. Yuval Noah Harari does something bold here. He stops being a historian and starts asking the kind of questions usually left to philosophers, scientists, and science fiction writers. Because now that humans have conquered famine, plague, and war, at least compared to the past, we are no longer struggling to survive. We are beginning to ask a different question: what do we want to become? For most of history, humans were at the mercy of nature. A drought could kill a village. A virus could wipe out a city. But thanks to advances in medicine, agriculture, and technology, humans today enjoy a level of safety and comfort that our ancestors could never imagine. Take a simple example: in the past, childbirth was a dangerous event. Today, in most parts of the world, it happens in hospitals with expert doctors and machines that monitor every detail. That is no small achievement. But Harari asks, now that we are so powerful, what will we do with that power? He introduces a stunning idea: Homo sapiens may soon become gods. Not gods in the religious sense, but gods in terms of our abilities. We are now able to edit genes, build artificial intelligence, and even imagine creating life from non-living materials. We are no longer just adapting to the environment, we are modifying it, and even ourselves. Let us look at genetic engineering. Scientists can now use CRISPR to cut and modify DNA. This means we can potentially eliminate hereditary diseases, enhance physical and mental abilities, and even design babies. What once seemed like science fiction is slowly becoming real. Then there is artificial intelligence. Algorithms already drive cars, translate languages, and recommend what to watch or buy. But what happens when AI becomes smarter than us, when machines can learn, create, and make decisions faster and better than human beings? Harari warns that this could lead to a world where algorithms know us better than we know ourselves. Imagine a future where your job, your health decisions, even your romantic life is guided by a machine that understands your biology and behavior better than you do. And that brings up a deeper question: are we in control, or are we handing over control? Another major area Harari explores is the idea of immortality. Throughout history, humans have feared death. Religions offered life after death as a way to cope. But now, scientists are trying to defeat death itself. Some believe that with enough biological understanding, we can stop aging, repair damaged cells, and live much longer, maybe forever. But even if we could live forever, should we? Harari pushes us to think about the consequences. If the rich can afford to extend their lives or enhance their intelligence through technology, what happens to the rest of society? Will inequality grow even wider? Will humans split into different biological classes, the upgraded and the unmodified? These questions are no longer just theoretical. Companies like Google, Meta, and biotech startups are investing billions into these technologies. They are racing not only to make profit, but to shape the future of the human species. Harari does not claim to have the answers. But he does offer a warning: humanity's greatest danger may now come not from outside like a natural disaster or an invading army but from within. Our own power could destroy us, if we are not wise in how we use it. He asks, what do we want to become? What do we want to want? Because in the end, the story of Homo sapiens is a story of choice. We chose to domesticate plants and animals. We chose to build empires, to believe in gods and nations. We chose to trust science, markets, and machines. And now we must choose what kind of future we want. Here is a powerful real-world reflection. Think about social media. It was created to connect people, and it did. But it also led to addiction, anxiety, and manipulation. The same tool that can unite people can also divide them. It is not the technology itself, but how we use it that matters. As we move toward artificial intelligence, genetic editing, and superhuman possibilities, Harari reminds us that wisdom must grow with power. Otherwise, we risk creating a future that benefits a few and harms many, or worse, a future we cannot control at all. In the closing pages of Sapiens, Harari does not end with fear or fantasy. He ends with a challenge to know ourselves. Because as we shape the future, we must ask not only what can we do, but also why are we doing it? The future is not written. It will be shaped by the stories we choose to believe and the values we choose to live by. And that brings us to the end of Sapiens, a brief history of humankind. Thank you for listening to this audiobook here on Books Arena. If this journey made you think, question, or see the world in a new way, then it has done its job. Remember, history is not just about the past, it is about understanding who we are, and where we are going. If you enjoyed this audiobook, make sure to explore other titles on Books Arena, where powerful ideas meet thoughtful storytelling. Until next time, keep reading, keep thinking, and stay curious. Welcome to Books Arena. Today, we're diving into Rework by Jason Fried and David Heinemeier Hansson, a book that flips conventional business wisdom on its head. Forget the hustle hype, 100-page business plans, and fake it till you make it advice. Rework is about doing less, but doing it better. It's for makers, creators, entrepreneurs, or anyone tired of outdated rules that just don't work in today's world. Ever heard? You need a big team to succeed? You need outside investors? Workaholism is a badge of honor? Rework says, nope. Not true. Instead, it offers sharp, practical advice like: start before you're ready. Say no more often. Embrace constraints. Planning is guessing. Meetings are toxic. Every chapter is short, punchy, and brutally honest. And best of all, you can apply these ideas right now, whether you're starting a business, freelancing, or just trying to get stuff done without burning out. So if you're ready to challenge what you've been told about work, let's begin. Part 1, Getting Started. Stop talking, start doing. Rework opens with a powerful message. You don't need to wait. You don't need permission. You just need to begin. While most business books tell you to plan, analyze, and strategize for months, or years, Rework says the opposite. Planning is guessing, and the best way to succeed is to start small and start now. Lightbulb key idea 1, ignore the real world. You've probably heard this before. That won't work in the real world. It's not realistic. You need more experience. The authors say the real world is just an excuse people use to justify doing nothing. Every groundbreaking idea from Airbnb to YouTube sounded unrealistic, until someone did it. The takeaway: don't let others' fear or inaction dictate what you do. Lightbulb key idea 2, learning from mistakes is overrated. Sounds controversial, right? But here's the reasoning. When you mess up, you often don't know why it went wrong. There are too many variables. The lesson is muddy. Instead of glorifying failure, Rework says, success is the best teacher. Do more of what works. Build momentum from your wins. Lightbulb key idea 3, planning is guessing. A 5-year plan? It's fiction. The further out you plan, the more you're guessing and the more things can change. Instead, Rework encourages short-term, flexible action. Focus on what you can control this week, today, right now. Lightbulb key idea 4, why grow? Growth for growth's sake is a trap. You don't need to be the biggest. You don't need hundreds of employees. You need to be useful. You need to be profitable. You need to be sustainable. Small is an advantage. It means less overhead, more control, and faster decisions. Lightbulb key idea 5, workaholism isn't heroic. Working late nights, burning out, always being on? That's not impressive, it's inefficient. Rework argues that workaholics create more problems than they solve. They try to do everything instead of doing the right things. Real productivity comes from clear focus and smart decisions, not exhaustion. Brain Part 1 Summary, the new rules of starting. If you've been waiting for perfect conditions, stop. If you're trying to write the perfect plan, stop. Rework says, start with what you have. Keep it simple. Make something useful. And don't be afraid to stay small. Because the truth is, you're more ready than you think. Part 2, Progress and Productivity, work smarter, not harder. Once you've started, the next challenge is keeping momentum. Rework isn't about doing more, it's about doing what matters, cutting through distractions, and making real progress without burning out. Here are the key takeaways from this section. Lightbulb key idea 6, make a dent in the universe. Don't just build something for the sake of building. Ask yourself, why does this matter? Meaningful work energizes you and others. You don't need to change the whole world. But aim to change something even if it's small. That passion is what pulls people in. Lightbulb key idea 7, scratch your own itch. Some of the best products come from solving your own problems. That's exactly how the authors built Basecamp, their original project management tool. They were frustrated with the tools out there, so they built what they needed. If something annoys you or slows you down, chances are it's bugging other people too. Solve that problem first. Lightbulb key idea 8, start making something. Don't waste time obsessing over fancy features or perfect code. Good enough is fine. Launch now. Tweak later. The authors believe momentum is more valuable than perfection. Every day you're building and shipping something real, you're ahead of the competition that's still planning. Lightbulb key idea 9, embrace constraints. Limited time. Limited money. Limited people. Most people see these as obstacles. Rework sees them as advantages. Why? Because constraints force creativity and focus. They push you to build only what truly matters. Less equals clarity. Less equals speed. Less equals sharper decisions. Lightbulb key idea 10, build half a product, not a half-assed product. Trying to do everything leads to doing nothing well. Instead, Rework recommends this. Pick one feature. Do it brilliantly. Ship it. A half-finished product with 10 features is useless. A fully finished product with one killer feature? That's progress. Brain Part 2 Summary, progress comes from focus. Solve real problems, especially your own. Get something out the door. Don't let limitations stop you, let them guide you. And always prioritize clarity over clutter. When you stop chasing more and focus on better, everything changes. Part 3, Competition and Promotion, stand out without selling out. In the world of business, competition and marketing are often treated like war zones. You're told to crush rivals, steal market share, and hustle 24/7 to promote yourself. But Rework flips that script. Jason Fried and David Heinemeier Hansson argue that the best way to win isn't by fighting harder, it's by choosing not to fight at all. Here's how. Lightbulb key idea 11, don't copy, be original. It's tempting to look at a competitor and say, let's just do what they're doing, only better. But copying leads to bland results. You don't know why your competitors made certain decisions. What worked for them might not work for you. You're just following someone else's playbook. Instead, the authors say, decommoditize your product. Make it unique. Add personality. Build something only you could have built. Originality stands out. Imitation blends in. Lightbulb key idea 12, pick a fight, smartly. Not all competition is bad. In fact, standing for something often means standing against something else. If you see outdated methods or bloated business models, call them out. Apple did it with PC. Basecamp did it with traditional project management tools. When you're bold enough to say, "We're not like them and here's why," you attract people who share your values. But be careful, this isn't about being petty or negative. It's about having a clear, confident point of view that others can rally behind. Lightbulb key idea 13, nobody likes plastic. People crave authenticity. Marketing doesn't have to be flashy, corporate, or fake. In fact, Rework argues that realness is your biggest asset. Talk like a human. Show your quirks. Let people see behind the curtain. Write and speak the way you actually talk. Share your struggles, not just your wins. Customers trust brands that feel honest, not polished. Lightbulb key idea 14, obscurity is your advantage. A lot of people worry about not having enough attention. But the authors flip this around. Being unknown is a gift. Why? Because while no one is watching, you can experiment. Make mistakes. Learn. Tweak. Improve. Once you're in the spotlight, the stakes are higher. So use obscurity as a sandbox. Get better before everyone's paying attention. Lightbulb key idea 15, teach, don't sell. Most businesses push their product. Smart businesses share their knowledge. Rework recommends teaching as a form of marketing. If you run a design studio, teach people how to think about visual storytelling. If you sell software, show how others can streamline their workflow even if they're not customers yet. When you teach, you build trust. Show authority. Give before you ask. In a noisy world, this makes you unforgettable. Lightbulb key idea 16, marketing is everything. You don't need a separate marketing department to do marketing. Everything you do is marketing. The words on your website. How you answer emails. How your product looks and works. The way you price and deliver it. Everything is the brand. So instead of outsourcing your voice to some ad agency, own it. Live your values in every part of the customer experience. Lightbulb key idea 17, don't be at the mercy of the press. Many companies chase media coverage like it's the only way to grow. But Rework urges you to focus on your audience, not the press. Why? Because the press comes and goes. One viral article doesn't build a loyal customer base. Consistency does. Connection does. Creating something worth talking about does. Instead of chasing attention, earn it. Lightbulb key idea 18, forget the big launch. Big launches create unnecessary pressure and expectations. Instead, Rework suggests launching quietly and iterating openly. Let real users guide your growth. You don't need fireworks to start, you need feedback. Ship when you're ready. Improve as you go. Because the truth is, most people won't notice your launch day anyway, but they'll remember your consistency, your clarity, and how well your product actually solves their problem. Loudspeaker Part 3 Summary, win without shouting. So what does Rework teach us about competition and promotion? Don't imitate. Create. Stand for something and against something. Be real. Be small. Be smart. Teach what you know. Give before you ask. Skip the hype. Build something honest. Marketing today isn't about shouting the loudest. It's about being so clear, helpful, and authentic that people can't help but listen. Part 4, Hiring, Culture and Long-Term Thinking, build a company you'd want to work for. Most companies talk about culture, vision, and talent, but Rework asks, are you actually living those values or just talking about them? This part of the book strips away the buzzwords and offers direct, sometimes uncomfortable advice about hiring slowly, building intentionally, and staying grounded as you grow. Let's explore the key ideas. Lightbulb key idea 19, do it yourself first. Before you hire someone to do a job, do it yourself. Why? Because when you do it first, you understand what the role actually requires. Learn whether it even needs a full-time hire. Gain empathy for the position you'll eventually delegate. Too many founders hire out of laziness or panic. Rework urges you to get your hands dirty first. That way, when you do bring someone on, you'll know how to guide them and whether they're doing a good job. Lightbulb key idea 20, hire when it hurts. Don't hire because that's what companies do. Wait until the pain of not hiring is real. When work is slipping. Customers are being affected. You're stretched too thin for too long. Only then is hiring truly necessary. Rework believes overhiring is worse than underhiring. Why? Because it leads to unused talent, bloated payroll, poor culture fit. Grow only when it's needed, not when it's trendy. Lightbulb key idea 21, pass on the rock stars. The world glorifies rock star employees, those high-profile, expensive hires who are supposed to transform your company. But rework warns. A brilliant jerk is still a jerk. Skills can't make up for bad attitudes, big egos, or poor teamwork. You want people who fit your culture, care about the work, and collaborate well, not people who constantly remind you of how amazing they are. The best hires aren't loud. They're quietly excellent. Lightbulb key idea 22, resumes are ridiculous. A resume can tell you where someone's been, not what they're like. Think about it. Most people inflate their achievements. Titles don't reflect ability. Buzzwords are meaningless. Instead of obsessing over degrees or previous job titles, rework suggests. Look at real work samples. Test them on small, real-world tasks. See how they think and communicate. Let people show you what they can do, not just tell you. Lightbulb key idea 23, hire great writers. Even if the job isn't writing focused, the ability to write well is a proxy for clear thinking. If someone can explain ideas clearly in writing, they likely think logically, communicate effectively, understand nuance, make fewer mistakes. That makes them a better teammate, no matter their role. So don't overlook writing ability, it's more powerful than most people realize. Lightbulb key idea 24, culture happens whether you plan it or not. Culture isn't free snacks or casual Fridays. It's how people treat each other. How decisions are made. What's rewarded and what's ignored. You can't manufacture culture, but you can shape it intentionally by hiring people who reflect your values. Leading by example. Saying no to toxic behaviors early. Culture is not what you say. It's what you tolerate. Lightbulb key idea 25, don't create problems you don't have. Many companies build policies to prevent rare problems. They add red tape just in case. Rework says, don't solve problems before they exist. Instead, start with trust. Assume good intent. Handle issues when, and if, they actually come up. Every unnecessary rule is a sign of fear, not leadership. Lightbulb key idea 26, send people home at 5. A healthy team isn't one that works all night. It's one that knows when to stop. Long hours don't equal loyalty or productivity. They usually mean poor planning, lack of focus, bad management. Protect your team's time. Encourage work-life balance. People who are well rested and present will outperform burned-out hustlers every time. Lightbulb key idea 27, don't scar on the first cut. If someone messes up, your first instinct might be to create a new rule to prevent it from ever happening again. But that's reactionary thinking. Rework says, don't scar your company with a policy after one bad incident. Use common sense. Talk it out. Learn from it. Not every mistake requires a system-wide fix. Brain Part 4 Summary, build slowly, lead honestly. In the rush to grow, it's easy to hire too fast. Compromise on culture. Create unnecessary complexity. But rework reminds us. Less is still more. Slow hiring beats fast firing. A strong culture isn't built with perks, it's built with people. When you stay intentional with how you grow, you build a company that doesn't just survive, it lasts. Part 5, Evolution and Staying Real, keep it simple, keep it honest. You've built something. Maybe it's a business, a product, a brand, or even just momentum. Now comes the hard part. Staying true to what works. Most companies lose their way not because they fail but because they overcomplicate, overreact, and overreach. Rework ends with a call to stay small, stay sharp, and stay real. Let's explore the key ideas that help you evolve without losing your soul. Lightbulb key idea 28, don't outgrow your soul. There's a myth in business that you have to scale or die. But Fried and Hansen argue that growing just to grow is dangerous. When you chase growth blindly, you start hiring people you don't need, creating products that don't fit, losing sight of what made you great in the first place. The bigger you get, the more your true self gets buried. So instead of chasing size, chase clarity. Grow only when it serves your mission, not your ego. Lightbulb key idea 29, say no by default. Every request feels urgent. Every opportunity looks shiny. But saying yes to everything waters down what makes you special. Rework says, make no your default answer. That way, when you say yes, it actually means something. Say no to distracting features. Say no to one-off custom work. Say no to bad customers. Each no protects your focus and your future. Lightbulb key idea 30, let your customers inspire you, not dictate you. Yes, listen to your customers. But don't blindly obey them. Why? Because customers often don't know what they really want or how it fits your vision. They ask for more features, faster timelines, custom options. It's your job to spot the patterns. Discern what matters. Filter requests through your strategy. Serve customers but don't let them steer the ship. Lightbulb key idea 31, be a curator, not a warehouse. A lot of companies add. But Rework says real value comes from subtracting. From editing. Like a museum, your job is to curate, not collect. Every feature, service, or product should earn its spot. If it clutters the experience, remove it. Simplicity isn't the lack of options. It's the presence of clarity. Lightbulb key idea 32, don't be a hero, be consistent. You don't need to pull all-nighters or fight fires daily to prove your worth. Rework flips the script. Don't be a hero. Be a worker. A good business isn't built on chaos or heroics, it's built on steady, repeatable effort. Ship steadily. Improve slowly. Show up consistently. That's more valuable and more sustainable than dramatic one-time wins. Lightbulb key idea 33, do less than your competitors. Yes, you read that right. While others try to offer everything, Rework recommends doing less but doing it better. Why? Because it's easier to maintain. It's easier for customers to understand. It helps you dominate a narrow space instead of drowning in a wide one. Find your niche. Own it. Forget the rest. Lightbulb key idea 34, don't write a mission statement. Live 1. Mission statements are often vague, corporate nonsense. They sound good in boardrooms but mean nothing in action. Instead, Rework says, don't write it, live it. Let your product reflect your values. Communication reflect your tone. Customer service reflect your priorities. A real mission is something customers feel, not something they read in italics on your about page. Lightbulb key idea 35, build an audience. Don't just sell, share. Start a blog. Write newsletters. Make videos. Teach what you've learned. When you build an audience, you attract people who trust you. Sell without selling. Create long-term loyalty. And even if your product changes, your audience stays with you because they believe in you, not just what you sell. Lightbulb key idea 36, inspiration is perishable. Rework ends with this reminder. Inspiration doesn't last forever. When you feel inspired, act. Write the draft. Code the prototype. Start the project. Don't sit on a good idea until conditions are perfect, they never will be. Momentum matters more than motivation. Compass Part 5 Summary, stay true, stay simple. This final section reminds us that sustainability beats scale and authenticity beats hype. You don't need to be the biggest, the fastest, or the loudest. You just need to know who you are. Protect your focus. Work with intention. Evolve without losing your edge. The best businesses aren't built on complexity. They're built on clarity, trust, and consistency. And above all, Rework says, keep it simple. Keep it human. And keep moving. So there you have it. Rework isn't a typical business book. It's a wake-up call. It strips away the fluff, the buzzwords, and the startup cliches and leaves you with something far more valuable. Clarity. This book is about working smarter, not harder. Staying small, staying focused, and doing what actually matters. Here's what it wants you to remember. You don't need a giant team, you need a clear direction. You don't need endless meetings, you need momentum. You don't need to be a hero, you need consistency. You don't need to scale fast, you need to stay real. Whether you're launching a business, running one, freelancing, or just rethinking how you work, Rework gives you permission to break the rules that no longer serve you. It's not about doing everything. It's about doing what matters. Pushpin now, over to you. Which idea are you going to rework in your own life or business? Was it saying no more often? Hiring slowly? Or maybe just protecting your time? Let us know in the comments below. We love hearing your takeaways. And if this video gave you even one aha moment, do us a favor. Thumbs up, like the video. Bell, subscribe to Books Arena. Outbox tray and share it with someone who's stuck in hustle mode and needs to hear this. Open book. Next up, we're diving into more books that challenge the norm and help you live, work, and lead with purpose. So stay tuned and remember, you don't need permission to start. You just need to begin. Until next time, keep it simple, keep it smart, and as always, rework. Welcome to Books Arena. In today's summary, we're exploring The Psychology of Money by Morgan Housel. This is not your usual finance book filled with numbers and investing formulas. It is about how we think, feel, and act when it comes to money. And most of the time, it is not logical. It is emotional. You will not just learn how to manage money. You will learn how to manage your money mindset. So whether you are saving for the future, investing, or just want peace of mind around money, this video will help you see money in a way you may never have before. Let us begin. Part 1, Wealth is how you think. When we hear the word wealth, most people instantly think of visible things: luxury cars, big houses, branded clothes, or exotic vacations. But Morgan Housel, in The Psychology of Money, challenges that idea. He says real wealth isn't what you see, it's what you don't see. Let's say you see someone driving a shiny new car. What you don't see is the car loan, the monthly Emmys, the credit card bills. Just because someone looks rich doesn't mean they actually are. On the other hand, someone who wears simple clothes, takes the bus, and lives in a modest apartment may quietly have crores in investments, savings, and zero debt. That's real wealth: silent, hidden, and powerful. Real wealth is not about looking rich. It's about being free. Freedom to choose how you spend your day. Freedom to say no to a job you hate. Freedom to spend time with your family. Freedom to sleep well at night knowing you're financially secure. Let me give you an example. Person A earns 5 lakh rupees a month and spends most of it on lifestyle gadgets, trips, and dining out. On the outside, they seem successful. But if they lose their job, panic sets in. Person B earns just 60,000 a month, but lives below their means. They save, avoid debt, and invest carefully. They might not look flashy, but they have peace of mind. Which one is truly wealthy? That's the key message here. Wealth is not your income, it's your savings, your security, your control over time. And this is where most people go wrong. They chase status instead of freedom. We're often tempted to buy things to impress others, things we don't even need, with money we don't really have, to impress people we don't actually know. But the smart ones, they choose quiet wealth. They let their money grow silently in the background while they focus on their values. In the end, real wealth is not about showing off. It's about having options. And that comes from changing how you think. Part 2, Why people make strange money choices. When it comes to money, people often behave in ways that seem strange, even foolish. You might see someone with an expensive phone who has no emergency savings. Or someone who's earning well but still living paycheck to paycheck. Another person may invest in risky stocks but won't buy basic insurance. On paper, it doesn't make sense. But that's the point Morgan Housel makes. Money is never just about logic. It's about behavior. Everyone has their own history with money. And that history shapes how they think, feel, and act. Some people grew up watching their parents struggle financially. For them, saving money feels safe. They might avoid debt at all costs. Even if they're earning well now, they feel anxious about spending. Others may have grown up in stable homes where money was never a big issue. They may see risk as normal. Spending feels okay to them because they've never experienced real financial stress. Let me give you an example. Imagine 2 friends, both 30 years old. One grew up during a financial crisis. Their family lost their home. They learned to value security and save aggressively. Today, even with a good income, they avoid spending and stick to a strict budget. The other friend grew up in a wealthy home. They were taught to enjoy life and not worry too much about saving. They spend freely and are comfortable taking financial risks. Now both earn the same salary, but they make very different choices. Are either of them wrong? Not really. They're just acting according to what money means to them. For one, money equals safety. For the other, it equals freedom. This is what Morgan Housel calls financial psychology. Everyone sees money through their own lens. There's no universal right way to handle it because no two people have lived the same financial life. And this is where personal finance becomes truly personal. Even the experts don't agree on everything. Some say never take debt. Others say use leverage wisely. Some say invest in real estate. Others swear by stocks. That's why trying to follow a perfect money strategy from a book or video may not always work for you. Because your money story is unique. Instead, ask yourself, what matters most to me? Is it safety? Growth? Freedom? Stability? If you understand your relationship with money, you can create a system that fits you. One that you'll actually stick to, even when life gets messy. Here's the takeaway: people make strange money choices not because they're stupid, but because they're human. Money is emotional. It's shaped by fear, pride, hope, and habits built over years. To make smarter financial choices, start by understanding your story, your behavior, your beliefs. When you do that, money decisions stop being strange and start making sense. Part 3: Behavior beats intelligence. When we think about wealth, most of us believe smart people are automatically good with money. We assume someone who's educated, well-read, or great at math must be wealthy or at least financially secure. But Morgan Housel flips that idea. He says, being smart doesn't guarantee financial success. Being emotionally intelligent does. Let's make it simple. Imagine two people. One is a stock market expert. He reads financial news daily, follows every trend, and tries to predict every move in the market. The other is a school teacher. She invests in simple index funds, ignores market noise, and never changes her strategy. 20 years later, the school teacher has more wealth. Why? Because she stayed calm. She stayed consistent. She trusted the process. This is the power of behavior over intelligence. The story of Ronald Read. Let's talk about Ronald Read, one of the most famous examples in Housel's book. Ronald Read was a janitor and gas station worker in Vermont, USA. He didn't have a high income. He lived in a small house. He used to fix his own car. His clothes were simple. People thought he was just an average guy living paycheck to paycheck. But when he passed away in 2014, everyone was stunned. Ronald Read had saved over $8 million. Yes, a man who never earned a high salary had quietly built a fortune. How? He lived frugally. He saved regularly. He invested in good companies, nothing fancy. And most importantly, he never panicked. He didn't sell his stocks when the market went down. He didn't chase trends. He let his money grow over decades. Ronald didn't have a finance degree. He didn't work on Wall Street. But he understood something more powerful: good behavior over a long time beats short-term brilliance. Compare that to many smart people. Now let's look at the other side. There are doctors, lawyers, CEOs, highly intelligent people who live paycheck to paycheck. They earn lakhs per month, but they spend even more. Their income is high, but their expenses are higher. Why? Because they assume success will last forever. Or because they're too focused on looking rich instead of being rich. Some invest in risky stocks trying to double their money quickly. Others take loans they can't afford. They react emotionally to every market dip. When panic hits, they sell everything. It's not about knowledge. It's about emotional control. Think about the stock market. The stock market is a perfect example of how behavior wins. Let's say you invest in a mutual fund. The market crashes. You feel scared. You think, I'm losing money. I should get out. So you sell everything. Then, after a few months, the market bounces back. Now you regret selling and decide to buy again, but at a higher price. This is a common pattern. People buy high, sell low, and lose money. Now think of someone else who simply keeps investing a fixed amount every month no matter what's happening in the market. They don't read headlines. They don't panic. They just stay consistent. In the long run, they make more money. Not because they're smarter, but because they're less emotional. Real wealth is boring. Here's a truth many people don't like to hear. Building wealth is boring. It's not about big wins. It's about small, repeated actions. Saving 10% of your income every month. Avoiding unnecessary debt. Investing in a long-term plan and sticking with it. Living below your means even when you can afford more. These habits don't sound exciting. But they work. The problem is, many people want fast results. They want shortcuts. They chase hot stocks, cryptocurrencies, or flashy investment schemes. But that's gambling, not investing. Wealth is created through discipline, not drama. Another example, Simran and Rohan. Let's take an example from everyday life. Simran and Rohan are both 28 years old. They earn similar salaries. Simran spends less than she earns. She sets a monthly budget. She invests in a balanced portfolio and ignores market noise. She doesn't care what others think. She just follows her plan. Rohan, on the other hand, wants to look successful. He buys a new phone every year. Upgrades his car through Emmys. Goes on vacations on credit. He follows investment tips from social media and jumps from one scheme to another. 10 years later, Simran has built a solid portfolio. Her money is working for her. She has no debt. She can afford to take a break from work if needed. Rohan is still paying off loans. His investments haven't grown much. And he's constantly stressed about money. What's the difference? Not intelligence. Both are smart. It's behavior. Simran was patient, consistent, and humble. Rohan was impulsive, emotional, and reactive. Key takeaways from Part 3. Here are the main lessons Morgan Housel teaches us. You don't need to be a genius to build wealth. You need to be steady, patient, and emotionally balanced. Time matters more than timing. It's not about finding the perfect investment. It's about staying invested long enough to let compounding do its magic. Avoiding mistakes is more important than chasing perfection. It's better to stay away from big losses than to chase big gains. Control your emotions. Markets will rise and fall. Life will throw surprises. But if you stay calm and stick to your plan, you will win. Simple always wins. You don't need complex strategies. You need a system that works for you and the discipline to stick with it. Final thoughts. The smartest investors are not the ones who read the most books or have the most degrees. They're the ones who understand their own behavior. They know how to avoid greed during a boom. They know how to stay calm during a crash. They know how to say enough when they already have enough. You don't need to beat the market. You just need to not beat yourself. So if you take one thing from this chapter, let it be this. Good behavior, not high intelligence, is what builds real, lasting wealth. Part 4, Key Lessons from the Psychology of Money. We've learned that wealth is not just about what you earn, it's about how you behave with money. We've seen that your background, your emotions, and your discipline play a much bigger role than financial IQ. Now let's look at the most powerful key lessons Morgan Housel shares in the psychology of money. These are the timeless ideas that can shape how you earn, save, invest, and even feel about money for the rest of your life. Lesson 1, Getting wealthy and staying wealthy are two different skills. Let's start with a big truth: getting rich is not the same as staying rich. To get rich, people often take bold steps. They might start a risky business, invest heavily, or work extra hours for years. But once you have wealth, keeping it requires a totally different mindset: caution, patience, and humility. Housel gives the example of people who built million-dollar businesses, but then lost it all by trying to double their money too fast. Others made money in the stock market but went broke because they couldn't stop gambling on risky assets. Imagine someone who becomes rich by investing in a startup. They strike gold. But now they assume every idea they touch will succeed. So they take bigger risks, borrow more, and eventually lose it all. Compare that to someone who builds wealth slowly, saves regularly, and refuses to chase trends. Their money grows steadily. They may never become flashy rich, but they stay financially strong. Getting wealthy requires offense. Staying wealthy needs defense. And that's what many people forget. Lesson 2, Compounding works best with time, not intelligence. If there's one lesson every young person should learn early, it's this: time is your best friend when it comes to money. Let's say you save just 500 rupees every week. That may not sound like much. But if you invest that consistently, and give it enough time, say, 20 or 30 years it can grow into a small fortune. Why? Because of compounding. Compounding means your money earns returns, and then those returns also earn returns. Over time, the effect becomes massive. Morgan Housel points out that Warren Buffett, one of the richest investors in the world, made more than 90% of his wealth after the age of 50. It wasn't just smart decisions. It was the fact that he started young and never stopped. The secret was time. This teaches us something simple but powerful. Start early. Be consistent. Let time do the work. You don't need to find the perfect investment. You just need to stay invested long enough. Lesson 3, use money to buy control over your time. What most people actually want isn't more money, it's more control over how they live their life. Think about it. Why do you want to be rich? To drive a luxury car? Maybe. But more often, it's because you want freedom. You want to work on your own terms. Spend time with your family. Take care of your health. Say no when something doesn't feel right. And that's what money can buy, not just comfort, but control. Housel calls this the highest dividend money pays, freedom. Let's take two people. Person A earns a huge salary, but they work 14 hours a day, take calls on weekends, and barely see their kids. Person B earns less, but they have a simple lifestyle, no debt, and complete control over their schedule. They work fewer hours, pursue hobbies, and live peacefully. Who is truly wealthy? The second person may have less money, but they're rich in freedom. And that's the kind of wealth that truly matters. Lesson 4, you don't need to maximize every rupee. Here's another powerful insight, you don't need the best investment plan, you need a plan you can stick to. Some people try to get the highest return on every rupee. They jump from one investment to another, always chasing better numbers. But constantly changing plans increases stress. You're more likely to panic during bad times and quit too soon. Housel says, it's better to pick a good enough plan that feels right for you, one that fits your comfort level, your personality, and your goals. Let's say you choose a low-risk, long-term mutual fund. Maybe it doesn't give the highest return. But you understand it, and you stay consistent. That's a win. Meanwhile, someone else picks a high-return plan but quits after one market crash. That's a loss. Consistency beats perfection. Choose a plan that you can stay with in good times and bad. That matters more than trying to be clever all the time. Lesson 5, people are not crazy, they're just different. Sometimes we look at other people's money choices and think, why would they do that? That's so dumb. But here's what Morgan Housel says, people aren't crazy, they're just acting based on their own experiences. For example, someone who grew up during a financial crisis may always prefer to keep cash in hand. Another person, who never saw economic struggle, might be more comfortable taking big risks. Neither is wrong. They just have different histories. So instead of judging others, try to understand that money is emotional. It's shaped by fear, past trauma, family habits, and personality. This also means stop copying others. Just because a strategy worked for your friend doesn't mean it will work for you. Build a plan that fits your mindset, your lifestyle, and your comfort zone. Your money journey is unique and it should be. Lesson 6, always leave room for error. One of the most powerful ideas in the book is this, never assume things will always go as planned. Life is unpredictable. Markets crash. Jobs are lost. Health emergencies happen. Global pandemics shut down the world. You can't control everything. But you can prepare. Housel says always leave room for error. Don't invest every rupee. Don't assume your job is secure forever. Don't take loans based on best-case scenarios. Build an emergency fund. Be cautious when needed. Hope for the best, but be ready for the worst. This mindset doesn't make you weak. It makes you strong. Final words. Let's quickly recap the key lessons from the psychology of money. Getting rich and staying rich are two different games. One needs boldness, the other needs caution. Time beats intelligence. Start early, and let compounding grow your money. The best use of money is control over your time and your life. Don't chase the best plan. Choose a good one and stick with it. Everyone sees money differently. Build your path, not someone else's. Prepare for surprises. Leave room for error. That's how you build lasting peace. In the end, Money is not just about earning or spending. It's about how you live your life. You don't need to be perfect. You need to be aware, patient, and intentional. That's real wealth. Part 5, Bonus Insights and Deep Reflections. We've already covered the core lessons of the psychology of money, how wealth is built through behavior, how emotions shape our decisions, and how time and patience often matter more than skill. But Morgan Housel offers more than just money tips. His deeper message is about how we think, how we live, and how we measure success. In this final part, let's explore some bonus insights and reflections that go beyond finance, ideas that can change how you see life, risk, happiness, and even success itself. Money success is more about survival than growth. When people think about investing, they focus on growth, how to double their money, how to beat the market, how to make it big. But Housel says something surprising: the most important part of money management is survival. Why? Because if you lose everything, if you go bankrupt, if you take on too much risk and it backfires, you're out of the game. It doesn't matter how smart your strategy was. If you don't survive long enough, you can't grow anything. So what does survival look like in real life? It means not investing everything in one place, avoiding unnecessary debt, having enough savings to handle a crisis, never assuming everything will go perfectly. Imagine two people. One chases high-risk investments, trying to get 20% returns. He gets lucky for a few years. But then one bad year wipes out everything. The second person invests safely. Lower returns, yes, but no big losses. Over 30 years, the second person comes out far ahead. Not because they were clever, but because they stayed in the game. So if you want long-term wealth, focus less on big wins, and more on not losing. No one's rich if they're always chasing more. Here's a hard truth: some people earn a lot of money, and still feel poor. Why? Because their goals keep shifting. They buy a car, and then want a better one. They move into a big house, and then want a bigger one. Their salary increases, but their lifestyle grows even faster. This is called lifestyle inflation, and it's the biggest trap for people who earn well. Housel says, the key to feeling rich is learning to stop moving the goalpost. Real wealth isn't just about having more. It's about being content with enough. Let's take two people. One earns 10 lakh a year and always wants more. The other earns 5 lakh but feels grateful, secure, and free. Who's richer? Not the one with more money, but the one who feels satisfied. This doesn't mean you should stop growing or improving. But it means learning to appreciate what you have, and to avoid tying your happiness to money alone. Because if you keep chasing, you'll never feel wealthy no matter how much you earn. Respect luck. But don't depend on it. One of the most honest things Housel says in his book is this: luck plays a bigger role in success than most people admit. Think about it. Some people were born into stable, educated families. Some got early access to good jobs. Some made the right investment at just the right time. Some launched a product just before a boom. Yes, they worked hard. But luck gave them a push. On the other hand, someone just as smart may have faced tragedy, bad timing, or bad luck. Does that mean we should stop trying? No. It just means we need to be humble. To understand that not all success is earned. And that not all failure is deserved. So how should we live? Work hard, but stay humble. Respect people who succeed but don't worship them. And most of all, don't copy someone else's path, thinking you'll get the same results. You don't know their story. You don't know their luck. Build a life that makes sense for you, not for someone else. Wealth means peace. Not just possessions. A lot of people think wealth is about what you can show: expensive clothes, gadgets, vacations. But Morgan Housel says, wealth is about what you don't see. It's the money you didn't spend. The stress you don't feel. The debt you don't carry. Let's imagine two people. One posts daily photos from luxury hotels. Everyone thinks he's rich. But behind the scenes, he's in deep credit card debt. The second person wears simple clothes, drives a modest car but sleeps peacefully, with a strong bank account and zero debt. Again, who's really wealthy? The one with peace of mind. Money should give you comfort, security, and options. If it's making you anxious, competitive, or unhappy, something's wrong. Real wealth is invisible, and that's okay. Your relationship with money is lifelong. Here's something most schools never teach: your relationship with money is like any other relationship, it needs time, trust, and understanding. You'll go through phases. Times when you earn more than expected. Times when you struggle. Times when you make mistakes. Times when you feel uncertain or lost. And that's okay. You're allowed to evolve. But like any relationship, if you ignore money, fear it, or treat it recklessly, problems will grow. So what can you do? Talk about money openly with your partner, your kids, yourself. Reflect on your habits. Forgive your past mistakes. Learn from others, but build your own values. Money is not just about numbers. It's about emotions, beliefs, discipline, and dreams. Treat it with care and it will take care of you. Final reflection: wealth is personal. The biggest idea in the psychology of money is this: there's no single right way to manage money. Everyone has a different story, different values, different fears, different goals. For one person, wealth means retiring early and living in the mountains. For another, it means traveling the world and experiencing everything. For someone else, it's about building a business or helping their family. So don't blindly follow advice even from experts. Take what fits. Leave what doesn't. And remember, wealth is not a number in your bank. It's how you feel when you wake up. Are you stressed? Or free? Are you in control of your time? Or chasing someone else's dream? That is the real measure of success. We've learned powerful ideas from the psychology of money. But now comes the most important part: how do we apply these lessons in real life? Because knowing something doesn't change your life. Doing something with it does. So let's go step by step and turn these money insights into practical actions anyone can take, whether you're a student, a working professional, a homemaker, or just someone who wants a healthier relationship with money. 1. Start tracking your expenses. Know where your money goes. Morgan Housel says most people don't need more money, they just need more awareness. And the first step to financial awareness is knowing exactly where your money is going. Start by writing down everything you spend, yes, even small things like snacks or subscriptions. Use a simple notebook or a free app. After a week or two, you'll notice patterns. You might be spending a lot on food delivery. Or you're paying for services you don't use. Or you have impulse purchases you didn't even remember making. Once you see it clearly, you can decide what actually matters. It's not about cutting everything. It's about being intentional. 2. Build an emergency fund, even if it's small. One of the biggest takeaways from the book is, plan for the unexpected. You don't know when your phone will break, when a family member might fall sick, or when your income might pause. That's why an emergency fund is your financial safety net. Start small. Even if you can only save 500 or 1000 rupees a month, start. Keep it in a separate savings account. Don't touch it unless it's a true emergency. You're not just saving money, you're building peace of mind. And when a crisis comes, you won't need to borrow, panic, or make bad decisions. 3. Automate your savings and investments. If you rely on willpower to save money, you'll fail more often than not. Life gets busy. Temptations are everywhere. That's why automation is powerful. Set up an auto transfer on the day your income arrives. Let a part of your money go straight into savings or investments before you even see it. It could be a recurring deposit, a SIP, systematic investment plan, a digital gold account, or just a separate future fund savings account. When you automate, saving becomes a habit. And over time, habits create wealth. 4. Avoid lifestyle inflation. Stay simple, stay rich. As your income increases, it's tempting to upgrade everything: your phone, clothes, car, house, holidays. But remember Housel's message: you don't need to look rich to be rich. Let's say your income increases by 10,000 a month. Instead of upgrading your lifestyle immediately, save or invest half of it. Treat yourself a little, you've earned it. But don't let every raise become another Emmy. This is how you build invisible wealth, the kind no one sees, but that gives you freedom, security, and confidence. 5. Stop comparing. Run your own race. We live in a world where everyone's life is on display: Instagram, YouTube, LinkedIn. But comparison is dangerous, especially with money. You don't know someone's full story. They may have inherited money. They may be drowning in debt. They may be chasing success but feeling empty inside. So Housel reminds us, don't copy others. Build a life that makes you feel peaceful and proud. Your path. Your rules. Your speed. This is not a competition. It's a journey. 6. Stay in the game, don't chase perfection. Many people delay investing because they're waiting for the perfect time or perfect plan. But there's no perfect time. And no perfect plan. Start small. Start now. Whether it's a sip of 500 rupees, buying your first stock, learning about mutual funds, or saving 1000 rupees in a piggy bank. Just get started. Because as Housel says, being in the game beats trying to be the smartest. You'll learn more by doing than by reading 100 articles. 7. Reframe the way you see money. Money is not just for spending or showing off. It's for buying time. Buying peace. Buying the freedom to walk away from what drains you. Buying the ability to help someone in need. So next time you spend, ask yourself, will this truly make me happier? Or is it just a temporary high? Can I instead use this money to get closer to my goals? Shifting your mindset around money changes everything. It turns you from a consumer into a conscious creator of your financial life. 8. Don't make emotional money decisions. Ever felt tempted to buy something expensive when you were sad or stressed? Or sell an investment because you got scared? That's emotional decision making, and it often leads to regret. So here's a rule: never make big money decisions when you're emotional. Wait 24 hours. Talk to someone you trust. Take a deep breath. Calm money decisions lead to calm money outcomes. 9. Teach what you learn, especially to kids and family. One of the best ways to remember and apply money lessons is to teach them. Talk to your younger siblings, cousins, or children about saving, delayed gratification, not comparing with others, and the power of compounding. You don't need to be an expert. Just share what's working for you. This creates a ripple effect. You help others while reinforcing your own habits. And slowly, your family culture around money becomes healthier. 10. Define what enough means for you. Lastly, ask yourself, what does enough look like in my life? Enough income? Enough savings? Enough comfort? Enough peace? Not everyone needs crores in the bank to feel secure. For some, a stable job, no debt, and family time is true wealth. Define your own version of enough and aim for that. Because once you know what's enough, you stop chasing more. And you start enjoying what you already have. Final words: you are already ahead. If you've made it this far, you're not like most people. You're thinking, reflecting, trying to grow. That's the real first step toward financial peace. And here's the truth: you don't need to do everything perfectly. Just doing a few things consistently will take you far. Start with one habit, one change, one belief. Over time, your money mindset will evolve, and so will your life. Because as the psychology of money teaches us, it's not about being the richest. It's about being in control, calm, free, and confident in your choices. We've now reached the end of our deep dive into The Psychology of Money by Morgan Housel. This book wasn't about spreadsheets, numbers, or complicated formulas. It was about people, emotions, behavior, and mindset. And here's what we've learned. You don't need to be rich to understand money. You don't need to be a genius to build wealth. You need patience, discipline, self-awareness, and a long-term view. Let's quickly revisit the key messages. Wealth is not what you see. It's not the car, the house, or the clothes. It's what you don't see: savings, freedom, peace of mind. Money decisions are emotional, not logical. Your background, childhood, and experiences shape how you think about money. There's no single right way, only what works for you. Behavior beats intelligence. Time in the market matters more than timing the market. Slow, steady habits beat short bursts of brilliance. Freedom is the true goal of money. It's not about impressing others. It's about living on your own terms. Start early. Stay consistent. Be humble. Avoid debt. Expect surprises. Respect luck. And always leave room for error. And most importantly, define your own version of enough. Because once you know what enough means for you, money stops being a race. It becomes a tool, one that works for your life, your values, and your happiness. So what can you do today? You don't need to change everything at once. Start small. Track your expenses. Set up automatic savings. Build a basic emergency fund. Reflect on your money beliefs. Talk about money openly without fear or shame. Every small action adds up. Every good habit builds a stronger foundation. You don't need to be perfect. You just need to keep going. Thank you for watching Books Arena. If this summary helped you think differently about money, please give this video a like and consider subscribing to the channel. Here, we break down life-changing books in a simple, spoken way so you can grow your mindset, one idea at a time. Tell us in the comments what was your favorite lesson from the psychology of money. And which book should we cover next? Until next time. Stay calm. Stay curious. And remember, wealth begins in the mind.